Hi everyone. Great to have you here at Monkey DFIC. Get comfortable because today we're presenting what if All Might discovered Luffy had one for all hidden in his devil fruit powers. Before we start, a gentle reminder, if you love stories like this, please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm show our videos to more people. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Chapter 1, Worlds Apart. Toshinori Yagi slammed his fist into the concrete wall, missing his target by inches. The villain laughed, a high, unsettling sound that echoed through the abandoned warehouse. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Getting slow, All Might. The villain's face twisted into a smirk as his hands began to glow with pulsing energy. Or should I call you what you really are now? A has-been? All Might coughed, a thin stream of blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. He'd already exceeded his time limit, but civilians were still in danger. Just a little longer. As long as I draw breath, evil will never triumph. All Might launched himself forward, his massive form cutting through the air despite the pain shooting through every muscle. The villain's eyes widened. Portal quirk, dimensional rift. The air between them tore open, reality itself splitting apart into a swirling vortex of light and color. All Might couldn't stop his momentum. He plunged headfirst into the rift, the villain's laughter fading behind him as he tumbled through impossible space. Young Midoriya. He whispered as darkness took him. Nami squinted at the horizon, lowering her binoculars with a frown. Something's falling from the sky. Luffy stretched his neck upward like a periscope, shading his eyes with one hand. Huh? Is it meat? Why would meat fall from the sky, you idiot? Sanji exhaled a stream of cigarette smoke, but he was already moving toward the railing. It's happened before. Luffy insisted, his rubbery arm stretching to grab the crow's nest. Remember when? It's a person. Usopp shrieked, his own binoculars focused on the plummeting object. Someone's falling. Luffy didn't hesitate. Gum Gum Rocket. He launched himself from the deck of the Thousand Sunny, his arms stretching back before catapulting his body toward the falling figure. The air rushed past him as he intercepted the unconscious man, skinny, blonde, and wearing a white shirt several sizes too big. Luffy wrapped his elastic limbs around him like a safety net and twisted back toward the ship. Gotcha. They crashed onto the deck in a tangle of rubbery limbs. The crew gathered around as Luffy unwound himself from the stranger. He's barely breathing, Chopper pushed through, already in doctor mode. Quick, get him to the infirmary. Sanji and Zoro lifted the unconscious man, shocked at how light he seemed despite his height. As they carried him below deck, no one noticed the faint blue sparks that danced momentarily across his skin. Toshinori's eyes snapped open. Unfamiliar wooden ceiling. The gentle rocking motion of waves. The smell of salt water and medicine. This wasn't UA or his apartment. He's awake. A childish voice called out. Toshinori turned to see, a raccoon. No, some kind of tanuki wearing a hat and standing on two legs. Where am I? Toshinori tried to sit up, wincing at the familiar pain in his side. Don't move too quickly, the small creature said. You fell from the sky. You're lucky Luffy caught you. Toshinori blinked. This had to be some kind of fever dream. Who are you? I'm Tony Chopper, the ship's doctor, the creature said proudly. You're aboard the Thousand Sunny. The door burst open, and a young man wearing a straw hat bounded in with impossible energy. Hey! Sky Guy. You're not dead. His face stretched into a grin that was literally too wide for a normal human. Toshinori stared. That wasn't a metaphor, the boy's face had actually stretched. Like rubber. Luffy. Don't bother my patient. Chopper scolded. I just wanted to see if he's okay, Luffy pouted, his lip extending several inches downward. And ask where he came from. People don't usually fall from the sky unless something cool is happening. Toshinori's mind raced. Either this was an elaborate hallucination, or the villain's quirk had done exactly what its name suggested, opened a dimensional rift. He was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere impossible. "Thank you for saving me," Toshinori said cautiously. "My name is Toshinori Yagi. I'm Monkey D. Luffy." The boy jabbed a thumb at his chest. "And I'm gonna be king of the pirates." More people filed into the small room, a green-haired man with 3 swords, an orange-haired woman with a no-nonsense expression, a long-nosed man peeking nervously from behind the door, a blonde man in a suit, a dark-haired woman with a mysterious smile, a blue-haired man wearing almost no clothes, and a skeleton with an afro. A skeleton. With an afro. Walking and talking. Yo-ho-ho-ho. "Our mysterious guest has awakened," the skeleton announced. Toshinori stared. He'd seen a lot as a pro hero, but nothing quite like this crew. "I'll ask the question we're all thinking," the orange-haired woman stepped forward. "How exactly did you end up falling from the sky into the middle of the Grand Line?" Toshinori hesitated. How much could he safely share? "I was fighting someone with a special ability. They opened some kind of portal, and I fell through it." "A devil fruit user?" the dark-haired woman asked. Toshinori blinked. "A what?" The crew exchanged glances. "You don't know what devil fruits are?" Luffy tilted his head. "Where are you from?" "I think," Toshinori said slowly, "I might be from somewhere very far away." After a meal, watching Luffy eat was both horrifying and impressive. Toshinori found himself on the deck of the ship, trying to process everything he'd learned. Devil fruits instead of quirks. Pirates instead of heroes. A world government that sounded just as corrupt as some of the politicians he'd dealt with. No sign of Japan, UA, or any familiar landmark. He was well and truly lost in another world. "You're taking this pretty calmly," said Zoro, leaning against the railing nearby. "Most people would be freaking out." Toshinori smiled weakly. "I've seen my share of strange things." "So you're not from around here?" It wasn't a question. Luffy doesn't care, but some of us are a bit more cautious. Understandable, Toshinori nodded. "I assure you, I mean no harm. I'm just trying to figure out how to get home." "And where is home exactly?" Toshinori weighed his options. These people had saved his life. And if he was going to find a way back, he needed allies. "A different world, I think. One where people have powers, but not from fruits. We call them quirks." Zoro raised an eyebrow but didn't look particularly shocked. "So that portal guy sent you between worlds? That's a new one." Before Toshinori could respond, shouting erupted from the other side of the ship. "Pirates! On the port side!" Usopp's voice carried across the deck. Toshinori turned to see a ship approaching, flying a black flag with a skull wearing a bandana. "They're nobody," Luffy grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Just some rookies looking for trouble." "We should change course," Nami argued. "We don't need unnecessary fights." Too late, Zoro nodded toward the approaching ship. "They're already preparing to board." Toshinori felt a familiar surge of duty. These people had helped him. He wouldn't stand by while they were attacked. But in his weakened state, what could he do? The pirate ship pulled alongside the Sunny, and a dozen rough-looking men swung across on ropes, brandishing swords and pistols. "Hand over your treasure and that fancy ship, Straw Hat." Their leader, a burly man with a scar across his face, pointed a pistol at Luffy. "Your bounty's too high for us to take you on, but we can settle for robbing you blind." Luffy just picked his nose, looking bored. "Nah. I'll handle this," Zoro stepped forward, drawing one sword. "You won't even need all 3. Toshinori asked quietly. Zoro snorted. "These guys? Not worth the effort." What happened next astonished Toshinori. The Straw Hat crew moved with incredible coordination, each displaying powers that would make top pro heroes take notice. Zoro sliced through steel with a single sword. Sanji's legs ignited as he kicked opponents across the deck. Robin sprouted additional arms from enemies' bodies to disarm them. Frankie's body revealed mechanical weapons. Brook moved with blinding speed despite being, well, a skeleton. But it was Luffy who truly caught Toshinori's attention. Gum Gum Pistol. Luffy's arm stretched impossibly far, slamming into 3 pirates at once and sending them flying back to their ship. Toshinori watched in fascination. Elastic powers, not unlike Lady's size manipulation or Best Jeanist's fiber control, but different somehow. There was something about the quality of the energy that felt familiar. The fight was over in minutes, the enemy pirates retreating with bruised bodies and egos. Toshinori hadn't even needed to transform, which was fortunate, given his time limit and the need to keep his true identity secret. "That was amazing," he said as the crew regrouped. "You all fight like pros." "Pros?" Luffy asked, retracting his stretched limbs. "We're pirates. The best crew in the whole ocean." "In your world," Robin approached with curious eyes, "what exactly do you do, Toshinori-san?" Before he could answer, a cannon blast rocked the ship. "Navy!" Nami shouted from the upper deck. 3 warships approaching fast. "They must have seen the fighting," Frankie growled. "Time to bail." "Too late," Sanji pointed to the horizon. "They're surrounding us." Toshinori felt the familiar tightening in his chest. These people were in danger because they'd helped him. He couldn't stand by. "Get below deck," he told Luffy. "I'll handle this." "Huh?" Luffy frowned. "No way. Nobody tells me to hide on my own ship." "I'm not asking you to hide," Toshinori said urgently. "I'm asking you to trust me." Something in his voice must have convinced the young captain, because Luffy studied him for a long moment before nodding. "You've got 2 minutes," he said. "If you're not winning by then, I'm joining in." As the crew reluctantly moved away, Toshinori stepped to the center of the deck. The Navy ships were closing in, Marines visible on their decks preparing for battle. He closed his eyes, focusing on the embers of one for all still burning within him. He could manage a minute, maybe 2 in his transformed state. It would have to be enough. Plus ultra. His body expanded, muscles bulging as power surged through him. Where the skinny, sickly Toshinori had stood moments before, now towered the symbol of peace, all might in all his glory. "Fear not, citizens," he boomed out of habit, then caught himself. Pirates. For I am here." From his hiding spot behind the mast, Luffy's eyes bulged out of his head, literally, thanks to his rubber powers. Hoo-hoo. So cool. The Navy ships had stopped their approach, clearly confused by the sudden appearance of a massive muscular man where a skinny one had been. All Might didn't give them time to regroup. He leaped into the air, the force of his jump creating a shockwave that rocked the Sunny. Texas Smash. The air pressure from his punch hit the lead Navy ship like a physical force, creating a massive wave that pushed it backward into the second vessel. Marines tumbled across the deck, weapons flying from their hands. Incredible. Chopper squealed from his hiding spot. All Might landed on the deck of the third ship, his smile radiating confident power. "I suggest you good folks stand down before anyone gets hurt." A brave Marine pointed a rifle at him. "Monster. What kind of devil fruit user are you?" "I ate the hero fruit." All Might improvised, figuring it was close enough to the truth. "Now stand down." When they didn't comply, he sighed theatrically. "Very well." Missouri Smash. A chop to the mast severed it completely, sending it crashing down across the deck, harming no one but effectively disabling the ship. He took down 3 Navy warships in seconds. Usopp gasped. Without even touching most of them. All Might jumped back to the Sunny, landing with a heavy thud. He could feel his time running out, the familiar pain returning. "The wind favors your escape," he told Nami. "I suggest we make haste." She snapped out of her shock and began barking orders. The crew scrambled to their positions, and soon the Sunny was racing away from the disabled Navy vessels. All Might made it below deck just as his transformation gave out. He collapsed onto a chair, blood trickling from his mouth, his body once again skinny and frail. The door burst open, and Luffy stood there, eyes literally sparkling. "That was awesome. You're like a superhero. How did you get so big? What kind of devil fruit makes you do that? Can you teach me to punch the air like that? Why did you get skinny again? Are you okay? You're bleeding. Chopper. The cool muscle guy is bleeding." Toshinori wiped the blood away. "I'm fine. This happens." The rest of the crew filed in, all staring at him with varying degrees of awe and suspicion. "You've got some explaining to do," Nami crossed her arms. "Starting with what you really are." Toshinori nodded. "It's a long story." "We've got time," Robin said, settling into a chair. So Toshinori told them about his world of heroes and villains, about quirks and how they differed from devil fruits, about One for All and how it had been passed down through generations. He explained his injury and his diminishing power, the time limit on his transformed state. "Where I come from, I'm known as All Might," he concluded. "The symbol of peace. So you're like the pirate king of heroes." Luffy grinned. "That's so cool." "Not exactly," Toshinori smiled weakly. "But I suppose there are similarities. In your world, are heroes the good guys?" Nami asked. "Generally, yes. We work with the government to protect civilians from villains. Here, anyone who opposes the world government is labeled a criminal," Robin explained. "Even if their actions are just. Pirates aren't always bad guys," Luffy added. "And Marines aren't always good guys. It's about freedom." Toshinori considered this. "I'm beginning to understand. Your world isn't as black and white as mine sometimes appears." "Enough philosophy," Sanji interrupted. "How do we get you back home?" Toshinori's face fell. "I don't know. The villain who sent me here, his quirk opened a temporary portal. Without him or someone with a similar power. We'll figure it out," Luffy declared with absolute confidence. "And you can stay with us until then. Having a hero around could be fun." "I don't want to impose." "Too late," Zoro smirked. "When Luffy decides something, that's that." "Besides," Frankie added, "anyone who can take down 3 Navy ships that fast is welcome on my ship anytime." Toshinori bowed his head. "Thank you. I'll try to be useful. Can you show us more of your moves?" Luffy bounced excitedly. "I wanna see everything." "Let him rest, Luffy," Chopper scolded. "His body needs recovery time after transforming." "Tomorrow then," Luffy decided. "We'll have a training session. I wanna see if my gum powers can do anything like your smashes." Toshinori nodded, though privately he doubted it. Devil fruits seemed fundamentally different from quirks, and One for All was unique even among those. But as he watched Luffy stretch his arms to grab a piece of meat from across the room, he felt a strange tingling sensation at the base of his skull. There was something about the quality of energy Luffy exuded, something that shouldn't be possible. Something familiar. The next morning, Toshinori found himself on deck watching Luffy train. The young captain was enthusiastically demonstrating his gum techniques to an audience consisting of Toshinori, Chopper, and Usopp. Gum pistol. Luffy's arm stretched across the deck, punching through a wooden target Frankie had constructed. Gum bazooka. Both palms slammed into another target, shattering it. Gum Gatling. His arms became a blur of rapid-fire punches. "Impressive," Toshinori nodded. Your control is excellent. I've been rubber since I was 7, Luffy grinned. Lots of practice. Show him gear second. Usopp suggested. Luffy nodded eagerly. He squatted slightly, placing one fist against the deck. Gear second. Steam began rising from his body as his skin took on a pinkish hue. The air around him seemed to vibrate with energy. Toshinori's eyes widened. There it was again, that strange familiarity. In this form, I pump my blood faster, Luffy explained, suddenly beside Toshinori when he'd been across the deck a split second before. Makes me super fast and strong. I see, Toshinori murmured, watching intently as Luffy demonstrated increased speed and power. And then there's gear third. Luffy bit into his thumb and blew, his arm expanding to massive proportions. Makes me giant. Toshinori watched with scientific interest now. These transformations were similar to the way one for all could be channeled and focused. And finally, Luffy grinned, returning to normal size, my newest technique. Gear fourth, bound man. Luffy bit into his arm, blowing air into his muscles. His body transformed dramatically, limbs bulging with power, his torso covered in what looked like armor made of his own rubber skin, strange tribal markings appearing. The moment the transformation completed, Toshinori gasped. The sensation that had been tickling at his awareness burst into full recognition. One for all. He could feel it, the unmistakable energy signature of the power he'd carried for decades. But that was impossible. One for all existed in his world, not this one. And he certainly hadn't passed it to Luffy. What's wrong? Luffy asked, his voice deeper in this form. You look like you've seen a ghost. Can you hold that form for a moment? Toshinori approached cautiously. I need to check something. He reached out, placing a hand on Luffy's transformed arm. The sensation was unmistakable, the familiar warmth of one for all, humming beneath the surface of Luffy's devil fruit power. How is this possible? Toshinori whispered. How is what possible? Luffy blinked. Before Toshinori could answer, the ship rocked violently as something massive struck it from below. Sea King! Nami shouted from the crow's nest. A big one. A monstrous serpentine head rose from the water, its jaws wide enough to swallow half the ship. The creature roared, sending spray across the deck. Perfect timing. Luffy grinned, still in his gear fourth form. Watch this, All Might. He launched himself into the air, his body compressing and expanding with controlled elasticity. Gum gum. Calm gun. His fist, enlarged and hardened, slammed into the Sea King with devastating force. The impact created a shockwave visible in the air, just like All Might's own attacks. The Sea King was thrown backward, crashing into the water with a massive splash. It didn't resurface. Toshinori stared in disbelief. That attack, the energy signature, the pressure wave, it wasn't just similar to his Delaware or Texas smash. It was practically identical in how the power manifested, just delivered through a rubber medium instead of his own muscular force. As Luffy landed on deck, his gear fourth form began to fade, the air releasing from his muscles. That was awesome, right? He grinned at Toshinori. I'm still working on controlling it better, but, Luffy, Toshinori interrupted, his voice serious. How exactly did you get your devil fruit powers? Luffy shrugged. I ate the gum-gum fruit when I was a kid. Thought it was dessert. Tasted awful. He made a disgusted face at the memory. And the fruit itself, what did it look like? Purple. With swirls. It was a long time ago. Toshinori turned to Robin, who had joined them on deck. In your research, have you ever encountered devil fruits that contain more than one power? Or powers that evolve beyond their original purpose? Robin's eyes narrowed with interest. There are awakened devil fruit users who can extend their powers beyond their bodies, and there are rare cases of fruits that seem to contain multiple abilities, especially mythical zoans. Why do you ask? Toshinori hesitated, then decided these people deserved the truth. Because Luffy's Gear 4th doesn't just use the properties of rubber. It's channeling energy that shouldn't exist in this world, the same power that allows me to transform into All Might. The deck fell silent as everyone stared at him. What are you saying? Chopper asked. I'm saying, Toshinori met Luffy's confused gaze, that somehow, the power of One for All is hidden inside Luffy's devil fruit. The crew gathered in the dining room as Toshinori explained his theory. One for All can be passed on willingly from one person to another, he said. It grows stronger with each transfer, accumulating power. But it can't be taken by force, that's its core protection. And you think I have this power? Luffy asked, unusually serious. Not exactly, Toshinori shook his head. I think your devil fruit somehow contains a fragment of it, perhaps dormant until you began pushing the fruit's abilities to their limits with your gear transformations. Robin tapped her chin thoughtfully. There are legends about the origins of devil fruits. Some say they contain the souls or essences of sea devils. Perhaps they can contain other forms of power as well. It would explain why Luffy's gears seem to exceed normal paramecia limitations, Chopper added. But how would this One for All power get into a devil fruit in the first place? Nami asked the obvious question. You said it only exists in your world. Toshinori spread his hands. That's the mystery. If devil fruits and quirks exist in parallel worlds, perhaps there's been some cross-contamination. Perhaps the worlds have intersected before. Or perhaps, Robin suggested quietly, they were once the same world. Everyone looked at her. The Void Century, she elaborated. 100 years of history erased from the records by the world government. What if during that time, some cataclysm split one world into separate realities? That's quite a theory, Toshinori admitted. I've heard crazier, Frankie shrugged. Who cares how it happened? Luffy interjected. The cool part is I might have superhero powers on top of being rubber. Can you teach me to use them better? I'm not sure it works that way, Toshinori said cautiously. One for All manifests differently in each wielder. In me, it enhances my physical strength to superhuman levels. In my successor, he stopped, pain flashing across his face as he thought of Midoriya. It works differently. But you could try, right? Luffy pressed. If I've got this power, I should learn to use it. Toshinori considered. I suppose we could experiment. But carefully. One for All's energy can destroy a body not prepared to handle it. My body is super tough. Luffy stretched his cheek out a foot to demonstrate. And I've been training for years. Very well, Toshinori nodded. We'll start tomorrow. As the conversation shifted to dinner preparations, Toshinori found himself lost in thought. If Luffy truly had access to One for All energy, even a fragment, it raised countless questions. And possibilities. Including, perhaps, a way home. The next morning, Toshinori watched as Luffy warmed up on deck, stretching his limbs in impossible ways. Before we begin, Toshinori said, I need to understand exactly how your devil fruit powers work. The mechanics of it. It's simple. Luffy grinned. I'm made of rubber. Everything stretches. Yes, but how do you control it? Is it conscious thought? Instinct? Emotion? Luffy tilted his head, considering. All of those. When I first got my powers, stuff just stretched randomly. It took practice to control it. And your gears? Those advanced techniques. Those I had to figure out. Luffy demonstrated, pumping his legs to accelerate his blood flow. Gear 2nd is about making my blood pump super fast. Gear 3rd is blowing air into my bones. Gear 4th combines both plus hockey. Hockey? Toshinori asked. Life energy, Robin explained, joining them. It manifests in different forms: observation haki for enhanced senses, armament haki for hardening and striking, and conqueror's haki for dominating the wills of others. Toshinori's eyes widened. And you possess these abilities as well? Luffy nodded. I'm still getting better at them, but yeah. This complicated matters. If Luffy was already channeling multiple energy systems, his devil fruit, this haki, and unknowingly one for all, the interactions could be unpredictable. Let's start simple, Toshinori suggested. Transform into your Gear 4th state, but instead of attacking, try to feel the energy flowing through you. Luffy nodded eagerly, biting his arm and blowing. His body transformed into the muscular bound man form, steam rising from his skin as tribal markings appeared. Now, Toshinori instructed, close your eyes. Focus on the sensations in your body. Tell me what you feel. Luffy's brow furrowed in concentration. I feel bouncy. And strong. And like I could punch a mountain. Toshinori suppressed a smile. More specific. The energy itself, where does it come from within you? Where does it flow? Oh. Luffy's eyes opened in understanding. It starts in my gut, then spreads out everywhere. But it feels different in different places. In my arms it's all zingy and powerful. In my legs it's springy. And when you attack, what happens to the energy? It all rushes to where I'm hitting, Luffy demonstrated with a slow-motion punch. Like whoosh. All in one place. Toshinori nodded. This was familiar, the way one for all gathered and released. Now, I want you to try something new. When you feel that energy rushing to your fist, imagine a second current beneath it, like a river under a river. Try to tap into that deeper flow. Luffy nodded, his face screwed up in concentration. He threw a punch at the air, focusing as Toshinori had instructed. For a moment, nothing happened beyond a normal Gear 4th attack. Then, suddenly, blue lightning crackled along Luffy's arm, the unmistakable visual signature of one for all at high intensity. Whoa! Luffy stared at his arm in wonder. Did you see that? Lightning. I saw, Toshinori confirmed, excitement and concern warring within him. That's one for all responding to your call. It feels different, Luffy flexed his fingers, the energy still sparking around them. Stronger, but also like it's not fully mine yet. Like I'm borrowing it. That's exactly right, Toshinori nodded. One for all is a power meant to be passed down, cultivated, and protected. Even when it becomes yours, it never fully belongs to you alone. Luffy grinned. That's cool. It's like having all my friends' strength with me. The simple wisdom in that statement caught Toshinori off guard. It was precisely the spirit of one for all, the accumulated will and power of generations, working together. Try channeling it again, but this time, direct it outward in an attack. Luffy nodded eagerly. He cocked back his fist, focusing intensely. Gum gum. King Kong. Smash. He combined his usual naming convention with all mights, and the result was spectacular. His fist, crackling with blue energy, shot forward with incredible velocity. When it hit the air, the impact created a pressure wave that split the clouds above them and sent ripples across the ocean's surface for hundreds of yards. Awesome! Luffy shouted, staring at his hand in wonder. Incredible, Toshinori murmured. The attack had been every bit as powerful as his own Wyoming smash, perhaps more so, given how Luffy's rubber properties enhanced the kinetic transfer. The rest of the crew had stopped what they were doing to stare in awe. Did you see that? Usopp babbled. He split the sky. Without even hitting anything. The energy signature is identical to when you transform, Robin noted to Toshinori. It confirms your theory. Luffy dropped out of Gear 4th, the strain finally catching up to him. He flopped onto the deck, breathing hard but grinning from ear to ear. That was the coolest thing ever. But super tiring. Is it always like that? One for all requires tremendous stamina, Toshinori confirmed. Even more so when you're only accessing fragments of it rather than having it properly transferred. So I could be even stronger if you properly gave me this power? Luffy asked, eyes gleaming with excitement. Toshinori hesitated. In theory, yes. But I've already passed one for all to my successor in my world. What you're accessing is just the residual energy that allows me to still transform occasionally. Oh. Luffy looked momentarily disappointed, then brightened. That's okay. I'll just get better at using what's already in my devil fruit. Toshinori smiled at his optimism. I believe you will. As the crew dispersed to their duties, Toshinori found himself contemplating the implications. If Luffy could access one for all through his devil fruit, it meant the two worlds were connected in ways he'd never imagined. And if those connections existed, perhaps there was a way home after all. 3 days passed in a blur of training and discovery. Toshinori worked with Luffy to refine his control over the one for all energy hidden in his devil fruit, while Robin researched ancient texts for any mention of connections between worlds. They'd made remarkable progress. Luffy could now consciously tap into the one for all energy without fully entering Gear 4th, creating a new hybrid state he dubbed Gear Hero, despite Toshinori's attempts to suggest more technical names. But their progress attracted unwanted attention. Ship approaching from the east. Usopp called from the crow's nest. Black flag with 3 skulls. Another pirate crew? Toshinori asked, looking up from where he'd been instructing Luffy. Not just any crew, Nami's face had gone pale as she lowered her binoculars. That's Blackbeard's flag. The atmosphere on the ship instantly transformed. Even Luffy's perpetual grin faded, replaced by grim determination. Everyone to battle stations, he ordered, suddenly every inch a captain. Nami, can we outrun them? She shook her head. Wind's against us, and they're moving too fast. They must have spotted us and changed course specifically to intercept. Who is Blackbeard? Toshinori asked, sensing the crew's tension. One of the 4 emperors, Robin explained grimly. Among the most powerful and dangerous pirates in the world. He possesses 2 devil fruits, something that should be impossible. He's the one who. Luffy's face darkened further, pain flashing in his eyes. He's responsible for my brother's death. Toshinori nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. What's the plan? We fight, Luffy said simply. We don't have a choice. As the black ship drew closer, Toshinori could make out figures on its deck, an assortment of dangerous-looking individuals, led by a large bearded man with a wild grin. That's him, Zoro confirmed, hand on his swords. Teach. Zihahaha. The laugh carried across the water as the ships drew parallel. Straw Hat Luffy. What a pleasant surprise. Blackbeard, Luffy's voice was ice. What do you want? Now, is that any way to greet a fellow emperor? Blackbeard's grin never faltered. I was just passing by when I felt something interesting. His eyes shifted to Toshinori. A power I've never sensed before. Toshinori stiffened. Could Blackbeard somehow sense one for all? Your new friend there, Blackbeard pointed at Toshinori. He's not from around here, is he? What's it to you? Sanji called back, lighting a cigarette with deliberate casualness. Knowledge is power, Blackbeard spread his hands. And I'm very interested in unusual powers. His gaze returned to Toshinori. Especially ones that seem to come from nowhere. Toshinori stepped forward. I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. Zihahaha. Playing dumb, huh? Blackbeard's expression darkened. I felt it 3 days ago, a surge of energy unlike anything in this world. And then again yesterday, and today. Coming from this ship. He leaned forward. From you, stranger. And somehow, from Straw Hat too. Leave now, Luffy warned, his body beginning to steam as he prepared for Gear Second. Or we'll make you leave. So hostile. Blackbeard mock pouted. I just want to talk. To learn. Perhaps make a trade. We don't make deals with you, Zoro growled. Not even for information about other worlds. Blackbeard's eyes gleamed. About how to travel between them? Toshinori felt a jolt of shock. How could Blackbeard know about that? Oh, did that get your attention, stranger? Blackbeard laughed. Yes, I know all about dimensional barriers. The Void Century. The splitting of the original world. He spread his arms. Why do you think devil fruits exist? They're fragments of that sundering, powers that don't belong in this reality. He's lying, Nami hissed. Trying to manipulate us. Am I? Blackbeard's grin widened. Ask your archaeologist friend. She knows the world government hides the truth about the empty throne and what sits beneath it. Robin's face had gone pale. Robin? Luffy asked, not taking his eyes off Blackbeard. What's he talking about? There are legends, she said carefully. About a device beneath Mariehua. Something the celestial dragons guard zealously. Something from the Void Century that can open doors. Doors to other worlds, Blackbeard finished for her. Exactly. And I know how to use it. He extended a hand toward Toshinori. Work with me, stranger. You want to go home, don't you? I can help you, if you help me understand that fascinating power you brought with you. For a brief moment, Toshinori was tempted. If Blackbeard truly knew of a way home. But one look at the pirate's hungry eyes told him everything he needed to know. This man would use one for all, for conquest, for domination. He was the opposite of everything the power stood for. I appreciate the offer, Toshinori said calmly, but I think I'll take my chances with my current friends. Blackbeard's face contorted with rage. Then I'll just have to take that power for myself. He raised his hand, darkness flowing from it like liquid shadow. Black hole. The air between the ships distorted as gravity itself warped, pulling objects from the Sunny's deck toward Blackbeard. Everyone hold on. Frankie shouted, grabbing the mast. Toshinori felt the pull, but something else too, a direct attack on the one for all energy within him. It was as if Blackbeard's power was specifically targeting the quirk energy. His dark fruit. Robin called out, clinging to the railing. It can pull in devil fruit powers. And apparently quirks too, Toshinori grimaced, feeling one for all straining within him. Luffy. Stay back. He might be able to extract the power from you. Too late. Luffy had already launched himself toward Blackbeard's ship. Gum jet pistol. Blackbeard caught the stretched fist in his darkness. Zihahaha. Rubber doesn't work on me, Straw Hat. I can nullify devil fruit powers with a touch. He yanked Luffy forward, darkness engulfing the young captain's arm. Luffy cried out in pain. I can feel it. Blackbeard's eyes widened with manic glee. That other power inside you. It's magnificent. Toshinori didn't hesitate. Despite his weakened state, he summoned one for all, transforming into All Might. Let him go, he boomed, leaping across the gap between ships. His fist connected with Blackbeard's face, sending the pirate emperor crashing into his own mast. Luffy fell to the deck, gasping, his arm smoking where Blackbeard had grabbed him. All Might stood protectively in front of him, facing Blackbeard and his crew. You picked the wrong ship to attack, villain. Blackbeard wiped blood from his mouth, his grin turning feral. Oh. And what are you going to do about it, hero? You're not even from this world. You don't know what you're dealing with. All Might had faced countless villains with similar confidence. He knew the type well. I don't need to know everything to recognize evil when I see it. Blackbeard's crew had surrounded them now, weapons drawn. Luffy was back on his feet, entering Gear 4th. Don't use one for all energy, All Might warned him quietly. He can somehow extract it. Luffy nodded, focusing purely on his devil fruit powers. Get the rest of the crew. Luffy called to Zoro, who had followed them onto Blackbeard's ship. We're taking this fight to them. What followed was chaos. The Straw Hats boarded Blackbeard's ship en masse, engaging his crew in battle across the deck. All Might found himself fighting alongside pirates against other pirates, a situation he never could have imagined. But the moral lines were clear. Blackbeard and his crew fought with casual cruelty, willing to sacrifice even their own members to gain advantage. Texas Smash. All Might sent 3 of Blackbeard's men flying overboard with an air pressure punch. Calm gun. Luffy took down 2 more with his hardened fist. Across the deck, the rest of the Straw Hats demonstrated why they were considered one of the most formidable crews on the sea. Zoro's 3-sword style cut through enemies with surgical precision. Sanji's flaming kick sent opponents crashing through cabin walls. Robin, Nami, Usopp, Chopper, Brook, and Frankie each displayed their unique fighting styles, working in perfect coordination. But Blackbeard himself was a different story. The darkness flowing from his body absorbed attacks, and when he struck back, it was with the force of an earthquake, his second devil fruit power. You can't beat me, he roared, sending fissures across his own deck. I hold the power of darkness and destruction. All Might found himself weakening, his transformation time running out. Luffy was showing signs of strain as well, his Gear 4th draining his stamina. We need to end this quickly, All Might said. Luffy nodded. Together? All Might understood immediately. Follow my lead. He gathered the last reserves of One for All, focusing it into his right arm. Go beyond. Luffy did the same, entering a hybrid state between his Gear 4th and the One for All energy they'd been practicing with. Blue lightning crackled around his inflated arm. Plus Ultra. All Might shouted. GUM. Luffy echoed. United. All Might continued. States of. Luffy added. Smash, they finished in unison, their fists connecting with Blackbeard simultaneously from opposite sides. The impact was cataclysmic. Even Blackbeard's darkness couldn't absorb the combined force. The energy collision created a blinding flash of blue light, and a shockwave that rippled outward, cracking the very air. When the light faded, Blackbeard lay unconscious, embedded in the remains of his ship's deck. All Might had reverted to Toshinori, completely spent. Luffy was on his knees, breathing hard. We did it. Luffy grinned weakly. But something was wrong. The point where their attacks had connected was distorting. The air twisted and warped, colors bleeding into each other like wet paint. What's happening? Sanji shouted, rushing toward them. The dimensional barrier, Robin realized, her eyes wide. Your combined powers must have struck it at exactly the right frequency. The distortion was growing, expanding into a swirling vortex similar to the one that had brought Toshinori to this world. It's a way home, Toshinori said, staring at the portal. One for all from 2 different sources, combined at maximum output, it created a bridge. The vortex pulsed, as if responding to his words. Through its swirling center, Toshinori caught glimpses of a familiar skyline, Muzutafu City. You have to go, Luffy said, standing shakily. Before it closes. But Blackbeard, we'll handle him, Zoro promised, joining them. This is your chance. Toshinori looked around at the Straw Hat crew, these incredible pirates who had taken him in, helped him, fought alongside him. In just a short time, they had become comrades. Thank you, he said sincerely. All of you. Will the One for All energy in my devil fruit go away when you leave? Luffy asked. Toshinori smiled. I don't think so. It's part of you now, a fragment of a power from another world. Use it wisely. I will. Luffy grinned, extending his hand. Become the greatest hero in your world. Toshinori clasped his hand firmly. And you become the king of the pirates in yours. The portal pulsed more urgently, beginning to shrink. You have to go now. Nami urged. Toshinori nodded. With a final wave to the crew, he stepped into the swirling vortex. The last thing he saw was Luffy's grinning face, one arm raised in farewell, blue lightning still crackling faintly around his fist. Then the portal closed, and Toshinori was tumbling through dimensional space, heading home. But he knew, somehow, that the connection between worlds wouldn't end here. The discovery of one for all energy within a devil fruit raised too many questions. Somewhere in the void between realities, the powers of heroes and pirates had crossed paths before. And they would again. Chapter 2, Awakening. The vortex snapped shut with a thunderclap that rocked both ships. Luffy staggered backward, his eyes fixed on the empty space where All Might had vanished. Blue sparks still danced around his fist, tangible proof that what had happened was real. He's gone, Usopp whispered, lowering his slingshot. Back to his world. Luffy nodded, a mix of emotions playing across his face. Yeah. Back to being the symbol of peace. A groan from the splintered deck snapped everyone's attention back to their current problem. Blackbeard was regaining consciousness, his massive body shifting among the wreckage. We need to move, Zoro said, sheathing his swords. Now. But he knows something, Robin protested, glancing toward the stirring emperor. About the connections between worlds, and he'll kill us all to get what he wants, Sanji cut in, already moving toward the Sunny. We can research without getting murdered. Luffy stared at his fist, still crackling with residual energy, then at Blackbeard. For a moment, he seemed tempted to finish the fight. Then he nodded sharply. Everyone back to Sunny. We're leaving. They retreated to their ship as Blackbeard's crew scrambled to help their captain. Within minutes, the Thousand Sunny was cutting through the waves, Kuda burst propelling them far from immediate danger. But Luffy knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Try it again, Chopper urged, medical equipment arranged carefully around Luffy on the infirmary bed. Focus on how it felt when you and All Might combined attacks. 3 days had passed since Toshinori's departure. 3 days of Luffy attempting to recapture that surge of power he'd felt when their fists connected with Blackbeard. 3 days of mixed results. It's weird, Luffy complained, his face scrunched in concentration. When All Might was here, the power felt like it was answering both of us. Now it's like it's hiding from me. Chopper adjusted a sensor attached to Luffy's arm. The readings show something's definitely there. Your biochemistry changed after prolonged exposure to one for all energy. Less science, more action, Luffy groaned, hopping off the table. I learn by doing, not thinking. That's certainly true, Nami remarked from the doorway. But maybe that's the problem. All Might described one for all as a power that's passed down intentionally. It responds to will and purpose, not just strength. Luffy tilted his head. So I need a reason to use it? That's easy. I want to get stronger to protect my crew and become king of the pirates. Nami smiled. Maybe it needs to be more specific than that. All Might used his power to be a hero, to save people. I save people all the time. Luffy protested. I saved Alabasta and Water 7 and, we know, Chopper patted his leg. But this power might need a different kind of focus. Luffy frowned, crossing his arms. Then his face brightened. I got it. I'll ask Rayleigh. Nami and Chopper exchanged glances. Luffy, Nami said gently, Rayleigh is on Sabaody Archipelago. We're weeks away, even with favorable winds. Then we'll go to Sabaody. Luffy punched a fist into his palm. He knows everything about hockey and powers and stuff. If anyone can help me figure this out, it's the Dark King. Before they could argue further, Robin appeared at the door. You might want to see this, she said, holding up an ancient-looking scroll. I found something interesting in the texts we recovered from that abandoned marine outpost last month. The crew gathered around the dining table as Robin carefully unrolled the fragile parchment. This appears to be a fragment of historical record from the Void Century, she explained, her fingers tracing faded symbols. Most of it is damaged, but certain passages remain legible. And? Frankie prompted. What's it say about Luffy's new power? Not directly, Robin admitted, but it contains references to what it calls the Great Sundering, an event where the single world became many, each following its own path through the seas of possibility. Multiple worlds, Brook murmured. Just like All Might suggested. Exactly, Robin nodded. But more interestingly, it mentions vessels of power that retained memory of the whole, carrying fragments across the divisions. Devil fruits, Zoro concluded, arms crossed. That's my theory, Robin agreed. The text suggests devil fruits were created during this sundering, possibly as a way to preserve certain abilities that existed in the original, unified world. And quirks could be the same thing in All Might's world, Chopper realized, his eyes wide. Different manifestations of the same original powers. Luffy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly slapped both hands on the table. So my gum-gum fruit has memories of All Might's world inside it? That's why it can use one for all. Robin smiled. Essentially, yes. But there's more. The scroll mentions something called the Convergence, a time when the sundered worlds shall align once more, and those who bear the vessels of power shall determine whether unity or chaos follows. A heavy silence fell over the room. A prophecy, Sanji finally said, lighting a fresh cigarette. Just what we needed. Is that why Blackbeard was so interested in All Might's power? Nami asked. Does he know about this convergence? It would explain his comments about the device beneath Mariehua, Robin nodded. If the world government possesses technology from the Void Century that can detect or even influence these connections between worlds, then Blackbeard wants it to take control when these worlds start coming together, Usopp finished, his voice rising in panic. He'll become king of everything. Not if I kick his ass first, Luffy said, his voice calm but determined. If All Might's power is inside my devil fruit, I need to learn to use it properly. And if this convergence is real, Zoro added, we need to make sure it's us, not Blackbeard, who controls what happens. Robin rolled the scroll carefully. There's someone who might know more. All eyes turned to her. Professor Clover once told me about a scholar who specialized in Void Century technology. The world government tried to eliminate her, but rumors suggested she escaped to an island called Libreria in the New World. Then that's where we're going, Luffy decided, pounding his fist into his palm. Set course for Libreria. The training began at dawn. Luffy stood on the deck of the Sunny, eyes closed, trying to feel the energy within him as Zoro supervised. The swordsman wasn't known for his patience, but his understanding of hockey made him the logical choice to help Luffy explore this new power. It's not just about finding the power, Zoro instructed, circling Luffy. It's about understanding it. Respecting it. I'm trying, Luffy groaned. But it feels different without All Might here. Of course it does, Zoro stopped in front of him. You're not trying to borrow his power anymore. You're trying to connect with what's already inside you. Luffy opened his eyes. How? Zoro considered the question. When you use Conqueror's Haki, what drives it? My will, Luffy answered immediately. My determination to win. And when All Might used his power? What drove him? Luffy thought back to the battles they'd fought together. His need to protect people. To be the symbol of peace. Then that's your answer, Zoro said simply. Stop trying to access it like it's a weapon. Access it like it's a responsibility. Luffy's eyes widened at the insight. He closed them again, but this time, instead of searching for power, he focused on what that power meant. The responsibility All Might had carried. The legacy he protected. For a moment, nothing happened. Then blue sparks flickered across Luffy's skin. "There," Zoro said quietly. "That's it." Luffy opened his eyes, watching the energy dance along his arms. It wasn't the full manifestation he'd experienced when fighting alongside All Might, but it was a start. "It feels different," he said, flexing his fingers. "Warm. Like it's happy I figured it out." "That's a weird way to describe it," Zoro raised an eyebrow. "All Might said one for all wasn't just power, it was the wills of everyone who carried it," Luffy explained. "Maybe that's what I'm feeling." Before Zoro could respond, Nami's voice called from the crow's nest. "Island ahead. It's Libraria." Libraria wasn't what they expected. Instead of a scholarly haven filled with ancient texts and learned professors, they found a deserted town surrounding a massive crater. "What happened here?" Chopper whispered as they walked through abandoned streets. "Something bad," Frankie replied, examining the buildings. "These blast patterns aren't natural. Someone attacked this place, recently." Robin's face was grim as she knelt to examine a charred fragment of parchment. "The world government found it before we did." "Maybe not everyone got away," Luffy suggested, already marching toward the largest building still standing, a domed structure that might once have been a library. "Let's check for survivors." Inside, the destruction was even more apparent. Shelves had been toppled, books burned, artifacts smashed. But something caught Robin's eye, a section of floor that had been deliberately cleared of debris. "Here," she called, kneeling beside what appeared to be a trapdoor. "Someone's been here since the attack." Frankie helped her lift the heavy door, revealing a steep staircase descending into darkness. "I'll go first," Luffy volunteered, already bouncing toward the opening. "Hold on," Nami grabbed his shoulder. "We don't know what's down there." "That's why I'm going first," Luffy grinned. "If it's dangerous, I can handle it." Before anyone could argue further, he disappeared down the stairs. "That idiot," Sanji muttered, lighting a fresh cigarette. "Better follow him before he gets himself killed." The staircase led to a surprisingly well-preserved underground chamber, a secret library that had escaped the destruction above. And it wasn't empty. An elderly woman sat at a desk, surrounded by stacks of books and scrolls. She didn't seem surprised to see them. "Finally," she said, setting down her pen. "I was beginning to think you'd never arrive, Straw Hat Luffy." Luffy tilted his head. "You know me?" The woman smiled, revealing a mouth with several missing teeth. "I know the signs. The blue energy you carry, it's been crackling around you since you entered the island's perimeter." The crew exchanged glances. "You can see it?" Robin asked cautiously. "Those who study the Void Century develop certain sensitivities," the woman explained, standing shakily. "I am Professor Hypatia. I've been expecting you since the dimensional tremor 3 days ago." "You felt that?" Nami asked. "The whole world felt it," Hypatia replied. "Most didn't recognize it for what it was. But I did." The barriers between worlds thinned momentarily. Her gaze fixed on Luffy. "And you were at the epicenter, along with another who has returned to his own reality." "All Might," Luffy confirmed. "He had this power called One for All, and somehow it's in my devil fruit too." Hypatia nodded, unsurprised. The lineage factor, the fundamental building block of devil fruits, carries memory across dimensional boundaries. Your gum fruit recognized something kindred in this One for All energy and harmonized with it. "But why Luffy's fruit specifically?" Chopper asked. "There are hundreds of devil fruits. Some have stronger dimensional resonance than others," Hypatia explained, moving to a nearby shelf and removing an ancient-looking book. especially those that directly affect the user's physical form. She opened the book to reveal diagrams of fruit-like objects, each labeled in a script none of them recognized. The original research on devil fruits, before the Void Century, classified them by their dimensional stability. Zoans are the most stable because they draw on existing biological templates. Paramecia vary widely. And Logias are the least stable, Robin finished, studying the diagrams. Because they transform the user into elemental forces. Precisely, Hypatia nodded. Your gum fruit falls somewhere in the middle, stable enough to maintain consistent properties but flexible enough to harmonize with extradimensional energy. Luffy scratched his head. So my fruit is special? All devil fruits are special, Hypatia corrected. But yours has now been altered in a way that hasn't happened since the sundering. She turned the page, revealing an illustration of a massive tree bearing fruit of various colors. The original tree, the source of all devil fruits, grew at the nexus of multiple dimensions. When the sundering occurred, splitting one world into many, fragments of the tree scattered across each new reality. In this world, they became devil fruits. In your friend's world, perhaps they manifested as these quirks. But Robin found a scroll about worlds coming back together, Luffy said. The con something. The convergence, Hypatia's expression darkened. Yes. The ancient texts predict that the sundered worlds will eventually begin to realign. When they do, those who possess powers from multiple dimensions will be able to influence how that realignment occurs. Like me, with this one for all stuff in my devil fruit? Precisely, Hypatia nodded. And others who might obtain similar combinations. Blackbeard, Zoro growled. He's already hunting devil fruits. If he learns the full significance of what happened. He already knows, a new voice interrupted. They turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows of a side passage, a thin man with pale skin and hollow cheeks. Van Augur, Robin identified him immediately. Blackbeard Sniper. The man inclined his head slightly. The Blackbeard pirates have been monitoring this island for weeks. We suspected the professor might possess valuable information. How did you get in here? Frankie demanded, weapon systems activating in his forearms. I arrived yesterday, Van Augur replied calmly. The professor has been most cooperative under the right, persuasion. All eyes turned to Hypatia, who avoided their gaze. I'm sorry, she whispered. They threatened to destroy everything, all the knowledge I've preserved. What did you tell them? Robin asked urgently. Everything, Van Augur answered for her. About the convergence. About the gum fruit's new properties. About the ritual that can extract and transfer dimensional energy. Ritual? Luffy stepped forward. What ritual? Hypatia sank back into her chair. An ancient ceremony, developed during the Void Century. It was designed to stabilize devil fruits that had become dimensionally unstable. But it can be repurposed, Van Augur added. To extract specific energies from one fruit and transfer them to another. That's why you're here, Nami realized. To capture Luffy and take this one for all energy. Van Augur chuckled. Captain Teach sent me to confirm the professor's information. Capturing the Straw Hat is a secondary objective, one I'm not equipped to accomplish alone. Then why reveal yourself? Zoro challenged, hands on his swords. Professional courtesy, Van Augur replied with a thin smile. And to deliver a message from Captain Teach. What message? Luffy demanded. He's already captured someone else with traces of this same energy, Van Augur said. Someone from this world who crossed paths with your friend All Might before you did. The crew exchanged confused glances. That's impossible, Robin objected. All Might fell directly to our ship from the other world. Did he? Van Augur raised an eyebrow. Or did you simply find him after he'd already been here for some time? The implication hung in the air. Captain Teach has this individual secure at our base on Full Elite Island, Van Augur continued. The extraction ritual begins in 3 days, during the Red Moon. If you wish to prevent it, you know where to find us. With that, he raised his rifle and fired, not at them, but at the ceiling. The shot triggered a cascade of explosions that rocked the underground chamber. The charges were placed yesterday, Van Augur explained over the rumbling. This knowledge is too dangerous to leave intact. As debris began falling, Luffy stretched his arms to grab his crew. Everyone out. Now. Van Augur was already gone, escaping through some hidden passage as the secret library began collapsing around them. My research. Hypatia cried, reaching for her books. Leave it. Luffy wrapped an arm around her frail form. We need to go. They barely escaped before the underground chamber imploded completely, the entrance sealing itself with rubble and dirt. Above ground, they watched as the last standing buildings of Libreria crumbled. Centuries of knowledge, Robin whispered, her face ashen. Gone. Not entirely, Hypatia said, retrieving a small cube from her pocket. I transferred my most important findings to this data crystal when the Navy first attacked. I suspected they would return to finish the job. So Blackbeard wasn't behind the initial destruction? Sanji asked. Hypatia shook her head. The world government has been suppressing information about the Void Century and the Sundering for 700 years. When they learned I was researching dimensional convergence, they sent CP0 to eliminate me. But you survived, Brook observed. I had warning. Hypatia's gaze fell on the ruined town. Others weren't so fortunate. What was that about someone else encountering All Might? Usopp asked, returning to Van Augur's claim. Is that possible? Time flows differently between dimensions, Hypatia explained. Your friend may have arrived in this world days or even weeks before you found him. And now Blackbeard has someone with the same power, Zoro frowned. That can't be good. It's worse than you imagine, Hypatia said grimly. The extraction ritual doesn't simply remove power, it transfers it. If Blackbeard completes the ceremony under the Red Moon, he'll gain control over this one for all energy. And with his dark fruit already allowing him to absorb devil fruit powers. Robin trailed off, the implications clear. We have to stop him, Luffy decided, his expression hardening. Frankie, how long to reach Full Elite Island? 3 days with coup de burst, Frankie calculated. We'd arrive just as the ritual begins. Then we better get moving, Luffy punched his fist into his palm, blue sparks flickering around his knuckles. And I better figure out how to use this power properly before we get there. Back on the Sunny, sailing at full speed toward Full Elite Island, Luffy stood at the figurehead, staring at the horizon. The wind whipped through his hair as he concentrated on the energy flowing through his body. After escaping Libreria, they'd brought Hypatia aboard. The elderly scholar now worked with Robin, analyzing the data crystal and providing insights into the dimensional energy Luffy carried. The key is understanding that One for All isn't just a power, it's a lineage, Hypatia had explained during their first training session. It contains the wills of those who wielded it before. You must harmonize with those wills. Easier said than done. For 2 days, Luffy had struggled to consistently access the blue energy. It came in unpredictable bursts, sometimes when he was training intensely, other times when he was completely relaxed. It's responding to something besides strength, Hypatia observed. Something emotional. Zoro suggested it might be tied to Luffy's protective instincts. When we were attacked at Libreria, it activated the moment you moved to save us. That theory had led to their current training method, Usopp firing projectiles at various crew members while Luffy attempted to intercept them, focusing on his desire to protect. Ready? Usopp called from across the deck, his slingshot loaded with pepper balls. Nami and Chopper stood nervously between them, designated civilians, for this exercise. Ready. Luffy confirmed, closing his eyes briefly to center himself. Usopp fired rapidly, sending 5 pepper balls flying toward the civilians. Luffy moved instantly, his body shifting to gear second as he intercepted the first 4 projectiles easily. The 5th, however, curved unexpectedly, heading straight for Nami's face. "Luffy," she screamed, too late to dodge. Something clicked in Luffy's mind, not just the desire to protect, but the responsibility to do so. The knowledge that if he failed, someone he cared about would suffer. Blue lightning erupted across his skin as he moved faster than he ever had in gear second, appearing in front of Nami and catching the projectile an inch from her nose. "Got it," he grinned, the energy crackling around him with newfound stability. "You did it." Chopper cheered, dancing around in excitement. Hypatia nodded approvingly from her observation point. The emotional component is critical. One for All responds to the hero's sense of duty. "Hero," Luffy repeated, examining the blue energy dancing across his fingers. All Might was a hero. I'm a pirate. Labels, Robin dismissed with a wave. What matters is intent. All Might protected people because he believed it was right. You do the same. She's right, Zoro agreed, approaching from where he'd been watching. You've been saving islands since East Blue. All Might just had a government license for it. Luffy laughed. When you put it that way. A commotion from the crow's nest interrupted them. Ship approaching. Brook called down. It's flying a Revolutionary Army flag. Tensions immediately eased. The Revolutionary Army, led by Luffy's father Dragon, was one of the few organizations they could consider friendly. As the ship drew alongside the Sunny, a familiar figure leaped across the gap between vessels. Sabo! Luffy exclaimed, his face lighting up at the sight of his adopted brother. The blonde revolutionary smiled, adjusting his top hat. It's good to see you, Luffy. His smile faded as he noticed the blue energy still crackling around Luffy's arms. Though it seems I'm late with my warning. Warning? Luffy's head tilted. About what? About the dimensional anomaly, Sabo replied grimly. And what Blackbeard plans to do with it. The crew gathered in the dining room as Sabo shared what the Revolutionary Army had discovered. It started 2 weeks ago, he explained, spreading a map across the table. Our sensors detected an unusual energy signature in this region. He tapped a point in the New World. At first, we thought it was a new Navy weapon. That's when All Might arrived, Robin realized. 2 weeks ago. Sabo nodded. We sent a scout ship to investigate. They found a man in strange clothing, injured but alive. Before they could reach him, a Navy patrol appeared. What happened? Luffy asked, leaning forward intently. A fight broke out. The man, despite his injuries, displayed incredible power. He transformed into a muscular giant and defeated the entire patrol. All Might, Chopper confirmed. Our scouts approached him afterward, offered assistance, Sabo continued. He was suspicious but agreed to meet with our commander to discuss his situation. That's when Blackbeard attacked. The crew exchanged alarmed glances. His ship appeared without warning. He seemed specifically interested in the stranger. There was a battle, but Blackbeard's darkness power seemed particularly effective against the man's abilities. One for All energy responds to gravity manipulation, Hypatia interjected. The dark fruit would have a natural advantage. Sabo nodded. The fight was brief but devastating. The stranger managed to create an opening for our people to escape, but he was captured. Or so we thought. What do you mean? Nami asked. 2 days later, our lookout spotted him falling from the sky. Sabo looked directly at Luffy. Directly toward your ship. So All Might escaped Blackbeard, Zoro concluded. Not exactly, Sabo shook his head. Because Blackbeard still has someone in his custody, someone who can use the same energy, but not transform like the stranger did. Luffy's eyes widened. Another one for All user. But All Might said he'd passed it to his successor in his world. Perhaps this power exists in our world too, Robin suggested. Independently of All Might's arrival. Or perhaps, Hypatia spoke up, when All Might crossed dimensions, the energy signature of One for All resonated with compatible individuals in this world. Like finding similar frequencies across dimensional barriers. Which means, Sabo continued grimly, that Blackbeard has someone with this power, and according to our intelligence, he's planning a ritual to extract and claim it for himself. During the Red Moon, Luffy nodded. We know. We're heading there now. Then our intelligence is accurate, Sabo said. The Red Moon occurs tomorrow night. We'll never make it in time, Nami realized, checking her charts. Even with coup de burst, we're still a day away from full A lead. Then we'll need help, Sabo stood. The Revolutionary Army has a base near here. We can provide transportation that will get you there in time. What kind of transportation? Frankie asked skeptically. Sabo smiled. Ever heard of the Lindworm? The Lindworm turned out to be a revolutionary secret weapon, a vessel designed by Karasu, one of the Revolutionary Army commanders. Part ship, part submarine, it could travel through the water at speeds the Sunny couldn't hope to match. It uses devil fruit energy as a power source, Sabo explained as they boarded the sleek black vessel. Specifically engineered to harmonize with certain paramecia types. The interior was cramped but efficient, with a control room, small sleeping quarters, and a central chamber dominated by what appeared to be a containment pod. This is where the power source connects, Sabo indicated the pod. Usually Karasu uses his Crocro fruit to power it, but... You want me to use One for All, Luffy realized. Sabo nodded. If Hypatia's theory is correct, and this energy has dimensional properties, it could enhance the Lindworm's speed even further. Is it safe? Chopper asked worriedly. Reasonably, Sabo shrugged. Karasu's tested it with various devil fruit users. The system doesn't drain your energy, it resonates with it, amplifying the output. Luffy didn't hesitate. Let's do it. As the straw hat settled into the vessel, Luffy positioned himself in the containment pod. The transparent walls closed around him as Sabo operated the controls. Focus on manifesting your energy, Sabo instructed. The system will do the rest. Luffy closed his eyes, concentrating on the now familiar sensation of One for All flowing through him. Blue sparks danced across his skin, growing stronger as he thought about what was at stake, someone held captive, Blackbeard's plans, the threat to both worlds. The sparks suddenly intensified, enveloping his body in azure light. The pod began to hum, conduits carrying the energy throughout the vessel. It's working. Sabo exclaimed as displays lit up around him. We're getting power readings off the charts. The Lindworm lurched forward, picking up speed rapidly. Through the viewport, they could see the water blurring past as they cut through the waves at impossible velocity. This is incredible, Nami marveled, checking the navigation system. At this rate, we'll reach full A lead hours before the Red Moon. In the pod, Luffy felt something strange happening. As the vessel drew on his energy, he found himself connecting more deeply with One for All than ever before. Images flashed through his mind, unfamiliar faces, battles he'd never fought, cities he'd never seen. Whoa, he whispered, eyes wide. I can see them. See who? Robin asked, noticing his expression. The past users, Luffy replied, his voice distant. All Might's predecessors. It's like, their memories are flowing through me. Hypatia moved closer to the pod, her eyes bright with scientific curiosity. The dimensional barriers are thinning as we approach the Red Moon. Your connection to One for All is strengthening. I see a woman with a glowing whip, Luffy described, his eyes unfocused. A man who can float. Someone with black tentacles coming from his back. The previous wielders, Hypatia nodded. Their quirks, integrated into One for All over generations. Can you access their abilities? Zoro asked, always thinking of tactical advantages. Luffy concentrated, focusing on the image of the floating man. Nothing happened. No, he finally said. I can see them, but their specific powers aren't part of what transferred to my devil fruit. Just the base energy. Still, Sabo noted, this connection might help you understand how to use it more effectively. Luffy nodded, his expression suddenly serious. Yeah. And I think I know who Blackbeard has captive. All eyes turned to him. In these visions, I keep seeing someone from our world. Someone who somehow connected with One for All when All Might arrived. Who? Nami pressed. Luffy's gaze met his brother's. Kobe. Full Lead Island loomed ahead, a jagged black silhouette against the darkening sky. As the sun set, the moon began to rise, already tinged with an ominous reddish hue. We have maybe 3 hours before the moon reaches its zenith, Hypatia warned, consulting an astronomical chart. That's when Blackbeard will begin the ritual. The Lindworm had brought them to a hidden cove on the far side of the island from Blackbeard's fortress. Now the Straw Hats, along with Sabo and Hypatia, gathered to finalize their plan. Blackbeard's fortress is heavily guarded, Sabo explained, sketching a rough map in the sand. Main entrance here, with watchtowers at these positions. The ritual will likely take place in the central courtyard, it needs direct moonlight. So we need a diversion, Zoro suggested, hand on his swords. And a way to extract Kobe once we're inside, Sanji added. I can handle both, Luffy declared confidently. The journey in the Lindworm had changed him subtly. His usual boundless energy remained, but there was a new focus to it, a sense of purpose that reminded them of All Might. Not alone, Nami countered. Even with this new power, you can't take on Blackbeard's entire crew by yourself. I'll accompany Luffy, Sabo volunteered. The rest of you can create the diversion. I should examine the ritual setup before it's disrupted, Hypatia interjected. If Blackbeard has made modifications to the ancient procedure, we need to know exactly what he's attempting. Too dangerous, Frankie shook his head. You're not a fighter, Professor. I've avoided the world government for decades, Hypatia replied dryly. I can manage stealth when needed. After further debate, they settled on a plan. Robin would use her devil fruit powers to infiltrate the fortress and gather intelligence on Kobe's exact location. Zoro, Sanji, Frankie, and Brook would create a diversion at the main gate. Nami, Usopp, and Chopper would secure an escape route and provide backup. Luffy and Sabo would enter during the chaos and head directly for the ritual site, with Hypatia following once the way was clear. As the others prepared, Luffy stood at the edge of the water, staring at his reflection. Blue energy flickered around him like a second skin, more stable than ever. You've mastered it quickly, Robin observed, joining him. Not mastered, Luffy corrected, flexing his fingers as the energy danced between them. Just, connected with it. It's weird, it feels like it's been waiting for me to figure it out. The professor believes One for All seeks worthy vessels, Robin said. Perhaps it recognized something in you that resonated with its purpose. Luffy grinned. I'm not a hero like All Might. I don't want to save everyone or be a symbol or whatever. No. Robin raised an eyebrow. What do you want, then? Freedom, Luffy answered without hesitation. For me, for my friends, for people who can't fight for themselves. He looked down at his hands, watching the blue energy pulse in time with his heartbeat. Maybe that's enough. Robin smiled. I think All Might would say it is. A distant bell tolled, echoing across the water. That's the signal, Sabo called. Blackbeard's gathering his crew. We need to move. Luffy nodded, his expression hardening with resolve. Let's go save Kobe. The infiltration began smoothly. Robin created a chain of arms to scale the fortress wall, then used her devil fruit ability to scout the interior without being detected. Within 20 minutes, she'd returned with valuable intelligence. Kobe is being held in a special cell in the Eastern Tower, she reported. He appears weakened but conscious. The ritual preparations are underway in the central courtyard, just as we predicted. Guards? Zoro asked. Minimal near the Eastern Tower, most of Blackbeard's crew is focusing on the ritual site, Robin replied. But Van Augur is positioned on the North Tower with clear sightlines to both areas. I'll handle the sniper, Usopp volunteered, patting his own rifle. Just get me to a good position. What about Blackbeard himself? Luffy asked. Robin's expression turned grim. He's changed since we last saw him. He's conducting some kind of preparation ritual of his own. His body appears to be absorbing something dark from multiple containers. Other devil fruits, Hypatia guessed. He's attempting to increase his capacity to absorb one for all by first incorporating additional devil fruit energies. Is that possible? Chopper asked, alarmed. Theoretically, no, Hypatia frowned. Multiple devil fruits should tear a body apart. But Blackbeard has already defied that rule once. Then we need to move fast, Sabo decided. Before he gets any stronger. They split up according to plan. As Zoro's team approached the main gate, the diversion began with Frankie firing missiles over the wall. Guards shouted in alarm as explosions rocked the fortress. Super entrance coming up. Frankie announced, transforming his right arm into a massive cannon. General left, radical beam. The gate disintegrated in a blast of energy, and Blackbeard's pirates poured out to meet the threat. Zoro, Sanji, and Brook engaged them immediately, creating the chaos they needed. Meanwhile, Luffy, Sabo, and Robin circled to the eastern side of the fortress. Using Robin's intelligence, they avoided patrols and made their way to the tower where Kobe was being held. Two guards at the entrance, Robin whispered, her crossed arms allowing her to see around corners. For more inside, stationed on the stairwell. I'll handle them, Luffy said, blue energy already crackling around his fists. You two get ready to move Kobe once the path is clear. Without waiting for a response, Luffy stepped around the corner. The guards barely had time to register his presence before he moved, faster than they could track, enhanced by One for All. Gum Gum Red Hawk Smash, he called, combining his flame-enhanced punch with All Might's technique. The impact sent both guards flying without even touching them, the air pressure alone was enough. Luffy continued up the stairs, dispatching the remaining guards with similar efficiency. He's gotten stronger, Robin observed as they followed in his wake. It's not just the power boost, Sabo replied, studying his brother's movements. His technique has improved. He's fighting smarter, more precisely. At the top of the tower, they found Kobe in a sea prism stone cell, looking pale but determined. His eyes widened at the sight of Luffy. Straw Hat. How did you? No time to explain, Luffy interrupted, gripping the bars. Blue energy surged through his muscles as he strained against the sea prism stone. For a moment, nothing happened, then, with a metallic groan, the bars began to bend. Impossible, Kobe whispered. Sea prism stone negates devil fruit powers. This isn't just devil fruit power, Luffy grinned, creating an opening large enough for Kobe to squeeze through. It's something extra. Once Kobe was free, Sabo handed him a water flask. Can you move? We need to get out before Blackbeard realizes we're here. Too late for that, a voice rumbled from the doorway. They turned to see a massive figure blocking their exit, Jesus Burgess, Blackbeard's first ship commander. Captain thought you might try something like this, Burgess grinned, cracking his knuckles. That's why he stationed me nearby. Get Kobe out, Luffy told the others, stepping forward. I'll handle this guy. Why ha ha ha. Burgess laughed. You couldn't handle me at Dressrosa, Straw Hat. What makes you think? He stopped abruptly as blue lightning erupted around Luffy's body. What the hell is that? Burgess took an involuntary step back. Something I learned from a hero, Luffy replied, his voice calm but intense. Go, now, he added to the others. Robin and Sabo didn't argue, helping Kobe toward a window on the opposite side of the room. You're not going anywhere. Burgess roared, lunging toward them. Luffy intercepted him with blinding speed, catching the much larger man's fist in his palm. The impact created a shockwave that cracked the stone walls around them. Your fight is with me, Luffy said, pushing Burgess back with surprising strength. Fine by me. Burgess snarled, his arms glowing with haki as he launched into a flurry of devastating punches. Luffy weaved between them, his movements enhanced by one for all. Where before he might have traded blows directly, now he fought with calculated precision, redirecting force, using his opponent's momentum against him. Hold still, damn you. Burgess growled in frustration. Detroit Smash. Luffy called out, borrowing All Might's technique as he drove his fist into Burgess's midsection. The impact lifted the massive fighter off his feet, sending him crashing through the tower wall and out into open air. He fell, screaming, to the courtyard below. Luffy turned to see Robin, Sabo, and Kobe staring at him in shock. That was. Sabo began. Different, Robin finished. Luffy glanced at his fist, still crackling with energy. Yeah. It feels right though. He grinned suddenly, his usual exuberance returning. Come on, we need to stop that ritual. In the central courtyard, Blackbeard stood within an intricate circle of symbols drawn in what appeared to be blood. Around him, 10 massive urns glowed with pulsing energy, connected to the circle by lines of the same dark substance. The preparations are complete, Van Augur announced, checking the position of the moon, now fully red and approaching its zenith. We should begin. Bring the sacrifice, Blackbeard commanded, his voice deeper than before, resonating with strange harmonics. His appearance had changed drastically since their last encounter. His body seemed to absorb light, small tendrils of darkness occasionally seeping from his pores. The whites of his eyes had turned black, leaving only his irises visible. 2 of his crew dragged forward a bound figure, a young woman with short white hair and vacant eyes. Who is she? Shiryu, Blackbeard's swordsman, asked dispassionately. A compatible vessel, Blackbeard replied. Someone whose body resonated with dimensional energy when the stranger arrived. She'll serve as the conduit. And the marine boy? Lafitte inquired, twirling his cane. His energy will be the first I absorb, Blackbeard grinned, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too numerous. The power he accidentally received when All Might crossed over. Van Augur suddenly stiffened, his enhanced observation haki detecting something. We have intruders. The eastern tower, before he could finish, an explosion rocked the northern wall of the fortress. The diversion team had breached the inner defenses. Secure the perimeter. Blackbeard ordered. Nothing must interrupt the ritual once it begins. His commanders rushed to comply, leaving only Shiryu and Van Augur with Blackbeard in the courtyard. As they prepared to defend the ritual site, a blue streak fell from the sky. Luffy, propelled by both his gum-gum powers and one for all energy. Blackbeard, he roared, landing in the center of the courtyard with enough force to crater the stone beneath him. The pirate emperor turned slowly, his unnatural eyes narrowing. Straw Hat. Right on schedule. Luffy straightened, blue lightning crackling around his body. Beside him landed Sabo, flames dancing along his pipe. Robin and Kobe appeared at the courtyard entrance, joined moments later by Hypatia. Release that woman, Luffy demanded, pointing to the bound sacrifice. And stop this ritual. Zihahaha. Blackbeard's laugh echoed unnaturally. Or what? You'll stop me with that borrowed power? That pale imitation of what I'm about to claim? If I have to, Luffy replied simply. Blackbeard studied him, head tilting like a curious predator. You've changed, Straw Hat. Connected more deeply with that hero's energy. His grin widened. Good. That means when I take it from you, it'll be even more potent. You understand nothing about one for all, Hypatia called out, stepping forward despite the danger. It cannot be taken by force. In its original form, perhaps, Blackbeard conceded. But once I've extracted it from compatible vessels and bound it to the darkness. He spread his arms. There are no limits to what the dark fruit can absorb. As if on cue, the moon reached its zenith, bathing the courtyard in blood-red light. The symbols around Blackbeard began to glow with the same crimson hue. It's starting, Hypatia warned. We need to disrupt the circle. On it. Sabo charged forward, his pipe wreathed in flame. Van Augur intercepted him with precise rifle fire, forcing him to dodge. Shiryu engaged Robin, his sword flickering like quicksilver as he prevented her from using her powers on the ritual components. Luffy faced Blackbeard directly, gathering one for all energy throughout his body. Gear 4th, Bound Man. His body transformed, muscles inflating and hardening with haki. But this time, something was different. The tribal markings that usually appeared on his skin glowed blue instead of black, and the steam rising from his body carried flickers of the same azure energy. Impressive, Blackbeard acknowledged. But futile. Black vortex. Darkness erupted from his body, spreading across the courtyard in tendrils that reached for Luffy. Where they touched the ritual symbols, they absorbed the red light, growing more substantial. Luffy launched himself upward, avoiding the initial attack. Gum Gum. California Smash. He combined his python technique with All Might's spinning attack, his arm stretching and twisting through the air before hammering down toward Blackbeard. The Pirate Emperor raised a hand wreathed in darkness to catch it. The collision created a deafening thunderclap and a flash of purple light where blue energy met absolute darkness. Luffy's attack stopped cold, caught in Blackbeard's gravitational pull. My darkness absorbs everything, Blackbeard gloated, tightening his grip on Luffy's arm. Even dimensional energy. Luffy felt a strange sensation, as if something was being pulled from deep within him. The one for all energy began to flicker, destabilizing. No! Hypatia shouted. He's using the ritual circle to enhance his extraction ability. Kobe staggered forward, his own body suddenly glowing with faint blue sparks. I feel it too, he's pulling on both of us. Blackbeard laughed triumphantly as streams of blue energy began flowing from both Luffy and Kobe toward the ritual circle. Yes. Come to me, power of another world. The white-haired woman in the center of the circle began to scream as her body involuntarily channeled the energy, redirecting it toward Blackbeard. We need to free her. Robin called, still fighting to get past Shiryu. She's the focal point. Luffy struggled against Blackbeard's grip, but the more he fought, the more energy drained from him. His Gear 4th form began to destabilize, the air leaking from his muscles. This isn't working, he realized, gritting his teeth. Fighting directly against the pull only strengthened it. Then he remembered what All Might had said about One for All, it wasn't just power, but legacy. Will. Purpose. Something that couldn't be taken, only given. Instead of resisting the pull, Luffy closed his eyes and focused on the energy itself. Not as his weapon, but as something entrusted to him. Something he had a responsibility to protect. You don't understand what you're trying to steal, he told Blackbeard, his voice steady despite the strain. One for All isn't just power, it's people. It's their hopes, their dreams, their legacy. As he spoke, the blue energy around him stabilized, no longer flowing toward Blackbeard but gathering more intensely around Luffy. What? Blackbeard's triumphant expression faltered. How are you? I can feel them, Luffy continued, opening his eyes, now glowing with the same blue light. All the people who carried this power before. They're lending me their strength right now. Silhouettes appeared around Luffy, transparent, ghostly figures with determined expressions. The vestiges of past One for All users, responding to his call. Impossible. Blackbeard snarled, redoubling his efforts. The darkness around him intensified, pulling harder at the energy. But something else was happening. As Blackbeard pulled, the connection between Luffy and Kobe strengthened, a bridge of blue energy forming between them, bypassing Blackbeard's ritual entirely. Straw Hat, Kobe gasped, feeling the connection. I can see them too. The two rivals, normally on opposite sides of justice, found themselves united by the shared energy of One for All. Understanding passed between them in an instant, not through words, but through the connected will of the power they both partially held. Now! Luffy shouted. Kobe nodded, focusing his portion of One for All energy not against Blackbeard, but toward the captive woman in the center of the ritual. The blue bridge between them surged, arcing through the air to envelop the white-haired woman. Her eyes cleared instantly, awareness returning as the energy broke Blackbeard's control over her. No! Blackbeard roared, realizing what was happening. The conduit. The woman's eyes glowed blue as One for All temporarily connected all three of them, Luffy, Kobe, and herself. With a cry of defiance, she raised her bound hands and brought them down on the ritual circle beneath her. The impact, enhanced by the blue energy, shattered the stone and broke the circuit of symbols. The red light flickered and died, and Blackbeard's connection to the ritual collapsed. Damnit! He howled, darkness erupting around him in chaotic waves. I was so close. Freed from the draining effect, Luffy regained his full strength. The blue energy surged through him more powerfully than ever. Gear 5th, Hero Mode, he declared, naming his new form in the moment. His body transformed again, not the cartoonish appearance of his awakened form, but something new. His muscles defined rather than inflated, his skin emanating blue light from within, his hair standing upright from the energy coursing through him. Detroit Smash. Luffy launched forward, faster than anyone could track. Blackbeard raised a barrier of darkness, but Luffy's fist tore through it like paper. The impact sent the Pirate Emperor flying backward, crashing through multiple walls of his own fortress. Captain! Van Augur cried, turning his rifle toward Luffy. Sabo intercepted him with a flaming kick, knocking the sniper unconscious. At the same time, Robin finally overwhelmed Shiryu, sprouting dozens of arms from his body to immobilize him. The white-haired woman collapsed as the energy left her, her role in the ritual having drained her severely. Kobe caught her before she hit the ground. Thank you, she whispered, her voice hoarse. He was going to use me to reshape reality itself. Across the courtyard, Blackbeard pulled himself from the rubble, darkness swirling around him in agitated patterns. His body showed signs of instability, parts of him occasionally dissolving into shadow before reforming. This isn't over, Straw Hat, he snarled, blood trickling from his mouth. The convergence is coming. The worlds will align whether you interfere or not. Then we'll be ready, Luffy replied calmly, the blue energy still flowing around him like a mantle. Blackbeard's gaze darted around the courtyard, assessing the situation. His commanders were engaged with the rest of the Straw Hat crew at the fortress gates. His ritual was disrupted. His conduit freed. Tactical retreat, he decided, darkness pooling beneath him. But remember this, Straw Hat, I now know the taste of that power. And what I've touched once, I can find again. Before Luffy could reach him, Blackbeard sank into a pool of his own darkness, vanishing from the courtyard. Should we pursue him? Sabo asked, joining Luffy. Luffy shook his head, his hero mode fading as the immediate danger passed. Not now. We need to get everyone to safety first. They gathered their injured and made their way to the fortress gates, where they found the rest of the Straw Hats had successfully held off Blackbeard's commanders. With their captain gone, the remaining Blackbeard pirates retreated into the fortress. We did it, Nami realized as they regrouped outside. We stopped the ritual. For now, Hypatia cautioned, examining the unconscious woman Kobe still carried. But Blackbeard was right about one thing, the convergence is coming. This was merely the opening move in a much larger game. Luffy looked up at the red moon, now beginning its descent from zenith. Then we'll just have to keep playing until we win. Back aboard the Sunny, safely away from Full Elite Island, Chopper tended to the injured while the others discussed what they'd learned. The white-haired woman, who introduced herself as Mira, had been a researcher at a world government facility studying dimensional anomalies. When All Might first crossed over, sensors throughout the New World had detected the disturbance. She had been sent to investigate and encountered All Might briefly before Blackbeard attacked. Something about my life energy resonated with his power, she explained weakly, still recovering from her ordeal. A small fragment transferred to me during our interaction, similar to what happened with Kobe. The Marine officer nodded. I was on patrol with Vice Admiral Garp when we encountered All Might fighting Blackbeard's crew. When I tried to help him, something connected between us. All Might's power seeks worthy vessels, Hypatia theorized. Even in fragments, it gravitates toward those with heroic qualities. But why didn't he mention meeting any of you? Usopp wondered. Time displacement, Robin suggested. The professor explained that time flows differently between dimensions. Perhaps from All Might's perspective, these encounters happened after he left us. Or maybe he just didn't want to complicate things, Luffy shrugged, munching on a piece of meat. He knew he needed to get home. Kobe looked at his hands, where faint blue sparks still occasionally danced across his skin. What happens to us now? Those of us with fragments of this power. We learn to use it, Luffy said simply. And we prepare. Prepare for what? Nami asked, though she suspected the answer. The convergence, Hypatia replied grimly. Blackbeard will try again. And next time, he'll be better prepared. So will we, Luffy declared, his usual grin returning. I've got the best crew in the world, plus a cool new power from another dimension. What more do we need? As the others laughed at his boundless confidence, Robin exchanged a concerned glance with Hypatia. The elderly scholar had shared her deeper concerns privately, that the convergence might not merely be worlds aligning, but colliding. If handled improperly, the result could be catastrophic for both realities. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, they had won a significant victory. As the Sunny sailed through the night, Luffy sat on the figurehead, staring at the stars. The blue energy of One for All flickered occasionally around his fingers as he experimented with maintaining a low-level connection. Still getting used to it? Zoro asked, joining him. Luffy nodded. It's weird. Sometimes it feels like someone's watching over my shoulder, making sure I don't mess up. The past users All Might mentioned. Zoro suggested. Maybe, Luffy grinned. Or maybe it's All Might himself, checking on me from his world. Do you think we'll see him again? Luffy looked up at the night sky, where the red moon had finally returned to its normal silvery hue. Definitely, he said with absolute conviction. The worlds are connecting. And when they do. His grin widened. I'm gonna show him how much stronger I've gotten with his power. Zoro smiled, recognizing the familiar determination that made Luffy who he was, a pirate with the heart of a hero. I'm sure he'll be impressed, he said simply. As the Sunny continued its journey through the Grand Line, none of them noticed the faint shimmer in the air behind them, a ripple in reality itself, as somewhere in another world, a skinny blonde man looked up from his desk, feeling a connection he couldn't explain but somehow recognized. The convergence had begun. Chapter 3, Symbol of Freedom. 3 months had passed since the battle at Full Elite Island. 3 months of preparation, training, and searching for answers. The Straw Hat Pirates had been unusually methodical in their approach, following leads across the Grand Line that might help them understand the coming convergence. Luffy stood at the bow of the Thousand Sunny, eyes closed, blue energy crackling around his body like a second skin. His control had improved dramatically. What had once been unpredictable bursts of power now responded to his will with precision. Gum Gum Hero Pistol. His arm stretched across the deck, fist wreathed in blue lightning. The air pressure alone shattered the training dummy Frankie had constructed, sending splinters flying in all directions. "Show off," Zoro commented from his meditation spot, though the smirk on his face betrayed his approval. Luffy grinned, letting the energy subside. "Just making sure I'm ready." "For what exactly?" Nami approached, charts tucked under her arm. "We still don't know when or where Blackbeard will make his next move." "We will soon," Robin called from the upper deck. She and Hypatia had been poring over ancient texts and the data crystal from Libraria for weeks. "We've identified a pattern in the dimensional tremors." The crew gathered as Robin laid out her findings. Using a map of the New World, she marked locations where sensors had detected ripples in reality, places where the barriers between worlds had momentarily thinned. "The frequency is increasing," she explained, pointing to dates scribbled beside each location. "What started as isolated incidents every few weeks has accelerated to multiple occurrences daily. The worlds are aligning faster than predicted," Hypatia added, her elderly face grave. "The convergence isn't years away as I originally calculated, it's imminent." "How imminent?" Frankie asked, adjusting his sunglasses. Hypatia pointed to a final marking on the map, an island surrounded by a red circle. "According to our calculations, a major convergence point will form here within the next 48 hours. "Raftel," Brooke whispered, recognizing the legendary island. "The final island of the Grand Line." "That can't be coincidence," Sanji exhaled a stream of smoke. "The most mysterious island in our world is the focal point for dimensional convergence." "It makes a certain sense," Robin mused. If the Void Century involved the sundering of worlds, Raftel's significance might be tied to that event. "Blackbeard will be there," Zoro stated with certainty. Luffy nodded, unusually serious. "So will we." "There's something else you should know," Hypatia said, hesitation in her voice. "We've detected an energy signature identical to All Might's, a full manifestation, not just a fragment like what Luffy, Kobe and the others carry." The crew exchanged startled glances. "All Might's back?" Chopper asked, eyes wide. "Not exactly," Robin corrected. "The energy appeared 3 days ago and has been growing stronger as it approaches Raftel. Based on our analysis, it's likely another bearer of one for all from All Might's world, possibly the successor he mentioned." Luffy's face lit up. "All Might's student is here. That's awesome. I want to meet him." "It might not be that simple," Hypatia cautioned. "If someone else has crossed dimensions, it suggests the barriers are collapsing faster than anticipated. And if Blackbeard captures them?" She didn't need to finish the thought. Blackbeard had failed to extract one for all during the Red Moon ritual, but with a primary vessel, someone who had received the power directly rather than through dimensional resonance, he might succeed. "Then we better get there first," Luffy decided, pounding his fist into his palm. Blue sparks danced around the impact point. "Nami, what's the fastest route to Raftel?" The navigator consulted her charts. "Normally, it would take weeks to navigate the currents. But if we use coup de burst strategically and push through the calm belt, we can make it in 36 hours, Frankie finished, already calculating. "I'll need to modify the engine, but it's doable." "Do it," Luffy ordered, his captain's authority shining through. "And everyone else, prepare for battle. This isn't just about stopping Blackbeard anymore." He looked down at his hands, where one for all energy flickered like a living thing. "It's about protecting both our worlds." As the Sunny raced toward Raftel, Luffy trained harder than ever. He worked with Robin and Hypatia to understand the nature of dimensional energy, with Zoro to refine his combat application of One for All, and with Chopper to monitor how the power affected his already unique physiology. "The integration is remarkable," Chopper noted, examining readings from his medical equipment. "The One for All energy has fully harmonized with your devil fruit. They're no longer separate systems, they're evolving together." "What does that mean exactly?" Usopp asked, watching as Luffy demonstrated his enhanced abilities on deck. "It means," Hypatia explained, that Luffy now has something unique, neither purely devil fruit nor purely one for all, but a new power born from their synthesis. This synthesis manifested in unexpected ways. Luffy discovered he could now extend one for all energy beyond his body, creating shields or directed force waves. His gear transformations gained new properties. Gear 2's speed now left trails of blue lightning, Gear 3's expanded limbs carried the impact force of All Might's strongest attacks, and Gear 4 combined with One for All created a state that resembled All Might's muscular form while retaining Luffy's elasticity. But the most significant development came during a sparring session with Zoro, when Luffy found himself in trouble. The swordsman had pinned him against the railing, all three blades threatening vital points. "You're relying too much on raw power," Zoro criticized. "A smart opponent will use that against you." Frustrated and cornered, Luffy felt something new stir within him, not just power, but insight. In a flash of intuition, he understood exactly how to counter Zoro's technique with minimal movement. His body moved almost of its own accord, slipping between the blades with precision that surprised both of them. A single finger tap, enhanced with focused One for All energy, sent Zoro skidding backward across the deck. "What was that?" the swordsman demanded, equally impressed and annoyed. Luffy stared at his hands in wonder. "I don't know. I just saw how to do it." The collective experience, Robin realized, observing from nearby. All Might said One for All carries the knowledge and techniques of previous users. You're beginning to access that aspect as well. This discovery opened new dimensions to Luffy's training. Rather than just channeling raw power, he began to draw on the fighting experience embedded within One for All, techniques and strategies developed over generations of heroes. "It's like having a bunch of teachers in my head," he explained to the crew over dinner. "Not telling me what to do exactly, but showing me possibilities I wouldn't have thought of." "That could be crucial against Blackbeard," Sanji noted, serving another round of food. "His darkness can nullify devil fruit powers on contact. You'll need more than just strength to counter that." Luffy nodded, uncharacteristically thoughtful. "I know. But there's something else bothering me." He looked to Hypatia. "All Might said One for All can only be passed willingly, not taken. So how could fragments of it transfer to me and Kobe just from brief contact?" The elderly scholar considered this. "I believe it's the interaction between dimensions. When All Might crossed over, One for All became unstable, seeking compatible anchors in this new reality. You, Kobe, and the others were essentially dimensional lightning rods, attracting fragmentary energy. But Blackbeard still thinks he can take it," Brook pointed out. "Why?" "Because he misunderstands its nature," Robin suggested. "He sees it as just another power to absorb, like a devil fruit. Which means he'll be surprised when it doesn't work the way he expects," Nami said, a calculating gleam in her eye. "Exactly," Luffy grinned, his usual exuberance returning. "And surprised enemies make mistakes." They reached the perimeter of Raftel 32 hours later, under the cover of a dense morning fog. The legendary island loomed ahead, a mountainous mass shrouded in mist and mystery. "Log Pose is going crazy," Nami reported, showing them the spinning needle. "Magnetic fields around the island are completely disrupted." "It's not just magnetic fields," Robin added, consulting specialized equipment Frankie had constructed. "Dimensional stability readings are off the charts. The barriers between worlds are paper-thin here." "Can you locate All Might's successor?" Luffy asked, scanning the shoreline for any sign of activity. Hypatia adjusted the sensitivity on her scanner. "The One for All signature is coming from the center of the island, a plateau near the summit of that central mountain." "Any sign of Blackbeard?" Zoro asked, hand on his swords. "Multiple vessels on the far side of the island," Usopp reported from the crow's nest, his enhanced vision penetrating the fog. "At least 3 ships flying Blackbeard's flag, plus what looks like a Navy vessel." "The world government wouldn't miss this," Hypatia said grimly. "They've been monitoring dimensional anomalies since the Void Century." "So we're facing Blackbeard and the Navy?" Chopper squeaked. Plus whatever defenses Raftel itself might have, Robin added. The ancient texts warn that the island protects its secrets. Luffy cracked his knuckles, blue energy already dancing across his skin. Doesn't matter. We're going in. They anchored the Sunny in a hidden cove and divided into teams. Robin, Nami, Hypatia, and Chopper would establish a base camp and monitor dimensional fluctuations. Zoro, Sanji, Frankie, Brook, and Usopp would create a diversion to draw attention from Blackbeard's forces. Luffy would head directly for the One for All signature to find All Might's successor before Blackbeard could. Frankie, you're in charge of extraction, Luffy instructed. If things go wrong, get everyone back to Sunny. What about you? The cyborg asked. Luffy's expression hardened with determination. I'll handle Blackbeard. Not alone, Zoro insisted. Once we've created the diversion, no, Luffy cut him off. Blackbeard's darkness can absorb devil fruit powers. That puts most of you at a disadvantage. With One for All, I have something he can't easily counter. Before anyone could argue further, the ground beneath them trembled. The air rippled like heat waves over hot sand, and for a brief moment, the landscape seemed to overlay with somewhere else, tall buildings, paved streets, a world of technology that didn't belong in the Grand Line. It's starting, Hypatia whispered as reality stabilized again. The convergence. We have hours at most before the dimensional barriers collapse completely. Then we move now, Luffy decided. Remember the plan, find All Might's successor, stop Blackbeard, protect both worlds. As they prepared to separate, Nami caught Luffy's arm. Be careful. Blackbeard's had months to prepare for this. So have I, he grinned, activating One for All in a controlled surge that enveloped his body in blue light. And I've got the best crew backing me up. With that, he launched himself toward the mountain, his stretched arms propelling him through the misty forest with astonishing speed. The trek up Raftel's central mountain proved more challenging than expected. Ancient ruins dotted the landscape, covered in symbols similar to the poneglyphs but older, more primal. Some seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles, as if existing in multiple states simultaneously. Dimensional anchors, Hypatia had explained during their planning. Markers placed during the Void Century to stabilize reality after the sundering. As Luffy passed one such structure, he felt One for All react, the energy surging and pulsing in response to whatever power resided in the ancient stones. Each time this happened, the air around him momentarily thinned, showing glimpses of another place, a city of towering buildings and strange vehicles. All Might's world, he realized, pushing forward with renewed determination. Halfway up the mountain, he encountered his first opposition, a squad of Navy soldiers establishing a perimeter around an ornate gateway built into the mountainside. Luffy didn't have time for a prolonged fight. Channeling One for All into his legs, he leaped high above them, using Gear Third to inflate his fist. Gum Gum Elephant Detroit Smash. The combined power of his devil fruit and One for All created an air pressure wave that knocked the entire squad unconscious without Luffy ever touching them. He landed beyond the gateway and continued upward, the blue energy around him leaving crackling trails in the air. The path steepened, turning into ancient steps carved directly into the mountain. As Luffy climbed higher, the dimensional fluctuations increased. Patches of reality flickered and shifted. One moment he was climbing stone stairs on a misty mountain, the next walking on cracked pavement in an urban landscape. The worlds are overlapping, he muttered, pressing forward through the disorienting shifts. Finally, he reached the plateau Hypatia had identified. A massive circular platform of carved stone dominated the summit, ringed by 12 obelisks that pulsed with multicolored energy. In the center stood a figure that made Luffy stop in his tracks. Not All Might, but someone clearly from his world, a young man with green hair, wearing a damaged hero costume with reinforced gloves and boots. Blue lightning identical to Luffy's crackled around his body as he faced off against a squad of Blackbeard's pirates. One for All, full cowling, the young man called out, moving with incredible speed to dodge a barrage of bullets. His fighting style reminded Luffy of All Might, but with unique elements, more analytical, more precise. All Might's successor, Luffy grinned, immediately launching himself into the fray. Gum Gum Jet Pistol. His stretched fist caught one of Blackbeard's men square in the face, sending him flying off the plateau. The others turned in surprise, weapons raised. Another one pirate shouted, pointing at the blue energy surrounding Luffy. The green-haired young man stared in shock. You have one for all. How is that possible? Long story. Luffy called back, moving to stand beside him. I'm Monkey D, Luffy. All Might left some of his power in my devil fruit. Midoriya Izuku, the young man replied, shifting into a fighting stance as more pirates approached. I'm All Might's successor. Back to back, they faced the remaining pirates. The similarity in their energies created a resonance between them, blue lightning arcing between their bodies, strengthening both. You feel that? Luffy asked, grinning wildly. Midoriya nodded, his analytical mind clearly processing the phenomenon. Our powers are synchronizing. In this place, where dimensions overlap, let's use it. Luffy interrupted, already charging forward. Gum Gum Gatling. Midoriya matched his attack instinctively. Smash Barrage. Their combined assault overwhelmed the pirates, the resonating one for all energy creating shockwaves with each impact. Within moments, the plateau was clear. That was awesome. Luffy exclaimed, bouncing with excitement. You fight just like All Might. Not really, Midoriya replied modestly. I'm still learning to use one for all properly. He looked around at the strange landscape, parts of it still flickering between worlds. Where are we? How did I get here? You're on Raftel, in my world, Luffy explained quickly. The dimensions are collapsing, that's probably how you got pulled through. All Might was here a few months ago. All Might? Midoriya's eyes widened. Is he still here? Nah, he went back after we fought Blackbeard together. But the connection between our worlds kept growing stronger. Midoriya processed this information with remarkable speed. The dimensional anomalies we've been experiencing in my world, rifts opening randomly, glimpses of other places. UA High School has been researching them for weeks. In our world, it's called the convergence, Luffy explained. And it's happening right here, right now. He pointed to the 12 obelisks, where the energy pulses were intensifying. That's why Blackbeard wants this place. He thinks he can control how the worlds come together. And who's Blackbeard? Midoriya asked, automatically analyzing potential threats. Before Luffy could answer, a dark laugh echoed across the plateau. Why not ask me yourself, boy? Both Luffy and Midoriya turned to see Blackbeard emerging from the forest path, flanked by his top commanders. The pirate emperor had changed even more since Full Elite Island, his body seemed to absorb the light around him, and darkness leaked from his eyes and mouth like living smoke. Teach! Luffy growled, instinctively stepping in front of Midoriya. Zihahaha. Blackbeard's laugh distorted unnaturally. Straw Hat. And All Might's true successor. How convenient that you're both here to witness history. Midoriya's eyes narrowed as he assessed the newcomer. You're the one trying to steal one for all. Steal? No, Blackbeard spread his arms. I'm going to transcend it. Transcend all powers, all limitations. He gestured to the obelisks. The ancient people who built this place understood that reality is malleable. These markers don't just connect dimensions, they shape them. You don't know what you're messing with, Luffy warned, blue energy intensifying around him. On the contrary, Blackbeard grinned, revealing teeth that had grown sharp and numerous. I understand better than anyone. The world government has suppressed this knowledge for centuries, but I found the truth. He pointed to the center of the circular platform. This is the original point, where the sundering of worlds began during the Void Century. And where I will remake reality in my image. As if responding to his words, the obelisks pulsed more rapidly. The air between them rippled and tore, showing glimpses of multiple worlds, not just Midoriya's, but others, stranger realms that neither had seen before. How many dimensions are connecting? Midoriya asked, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his caution. All of them, Blackbeard replied, his voice resonating with unnatural power. Every world that split from the original reality during the sundering. And with the combined power of devil fruits, quirks, and whatever other abilities exist across dimensions, I will rule them all. You're insane, Luffy stated flatly. The convergence isn't something you can control. Even Hypatia says it's too powerful. Your scholar understands nothing. Blackbeard snarled. I've absorbed the knowledge of dimensional manipulators from multiple worlds. I've prepared rituals that haven't been performed since before the Void Century. As if to demonstrate, he raised his hands. Darkness flowed from them, but different from his usual power, structured, patterned, forming complex symbols in the air. Black hole, dimensional variation, he called. The darkness shot toward the nearest obelisk, enveloping it. The stone's energy changed from blue to purple, and one of the spatial rifts widened dramatically, showing a world of strange creatures and alien landscapes. You see? Blackbeard crowed triumphantly. I can already influence which worlds connect and how strongly. Midoriya stepped forward, analysis complete. His control is unstable. Those symbols are distorting with each pulse of the obelisks. Luffy nodded, seeing the same thing. He's playing with forces he doesn't understand. Enough talk. Blackbeard barked at his commanders. Secure the perimeter. No interruptions. To Luffy and Midoriya, he spread his darkness-wreathed hands. As for you two, I still need that one for all energy to complete my ascension. You can't take one for all, Midoriya stated with absolute certainty. It can only be given willingly. In its pure form, perhaps, Blackbeard conceded. But I've found workarounds for that particular limitation. His grin widened impossibly. Starting with consuming those who possess it. He lunged forward with shocking speed, darkness extending from his body like tentacles. Luffy and Midoriya dodged in opposite directions, their one for all energy leaving blue trails in the air. Split up. Luffy called. His darkness can absorb powers on contact. Midoriya nodded, leaping high to avoid the shadowy tendrils. One for all, full cowling, 20%. His speed increased dramatically as green lightning mixed with the blue around his body. Blackbeard tracked his movement, darkness shooting upward to intercept him. Predictable. The Pirate Emperor laughed, gravity powers pulling Midoriya toward his grasp. Gum Gum Hero Rifle. Luffy stretched, twisted arms slammed into Blackbeard's side, disrupting his concentration enough for Midoriya to escape the gravitational pull. Thanks. Midoriya called, landing in a combat-ready stance. His quirk seems to have two distinct aspects, darkness manipulation and gravity control. It's not a quirk, Luffy corrected, bouncing away from another tendril of darkness. It's a devil fruit, two devil fruits actually, which should be impossible. Blackbeard recovered quickly, darkness swirling around him like a protective cloak. Analyzing won't save you. Black Vortex. The darkness expanded outward in a wave, attempting to engulf both fighters. Luffy and Midoriya leaped clear, but the edge of the darkness caught Luffy's foot. He felt an immediate draining sensation, his devil fruit powers temporarily nullifying where the darkness touched. Careful, he warned Midoriya. His darkness cancels out abilities. Midoriya nodded, processing this information with remarkable speed. We need to attack simultaneously from different angles, divide his attention. They fell into a natural rhythm, as if they'd trained together for years. When Luffy attacked from the front, Midoriya struck from behind. When Blackbeard focused on Midoriya, Luffy would capitalize on the opening. Their one-for-all energies continued to resonate, growing stronger with each synchronized movement. But Blackbeard was far from outmatched. His command of darkness had evolved since their last encounter, moving with almost sentient precision to block, counterattack, and separate the two fighters. Liberation, he roared, releasing a pulse of gravity that sent both Luffy and Midoriya crashing into opposite obelisks. Midoriya recovered first, his analytical mind racing. The obelisks react to one-for-all energy, he called to Luffy. Watch. He placed his hand directly on the stone structure, channeling his power into it. The obelisk pulsed brightly, and the dimensional rift nearest to it stabilized, showing a clear view of a Japanese city skyline, his world. You're right. Luffy realized, doing the same to his nearest obelisk. The corresponding rift showed the familiar ocean of the Grand Line. Blackbeard's eyes widened with rage. Get away from those. The dimensional alignment is delicate. He doesn't want us interfering with the rifts, Midoriya observed. That means we can mess up his plan by controlling the obelisks. Luffy finished, grinning wildly. Let's do it. They began moving around the circle, touching each obelisk and channeling one-for-all energy into them. As they did, the rift stabilized into clear windows between worlds rather than chaotic tiers in reality. No. Blackbeard roared, darkness erupting from him in chaotic waves. Black hole, maximum absorption. The darkness expanded to tremendous size, pulling at everything within range, rocks, trees, even the air itself distorted as it was drawn toward Blackbeard. Both Luffy and Midoriya had to anchor themselves to obelisks to avoid being pulled in. He's losing control. Midoriya shouted over the roaring vortex. The dimensional energies are too much for him. Indeed, Blackbeard's form was fluctuating wildly, parts of him dissolving into pure darkness before reforming. The multiple devil fruit energies he'd absorbed were reacting unpredictably to the dimensional instability. We need to end this now. Luffy called. Together. Midoriya nodded, understanding the plan without words. They positioned themselves on opposite sides of Blackbeard, both channeling one-for-all to maximum output. This ends here, teach. Luffy declared, entering his newly perfected form. Gear 5th, Hero Mode. His body transformed, muscles defined rather than inflated, skin glowing with blue energy from within, hair standing upright from the power coursing through him. Across from him, Midoriya pushed his limits as well. One for all, full cowling, 100%. Green and blue lightning merged around his body as he accessed the full potential of the power All Might had entrusted to him. Blackbeard, sensing his danger, gathered darkness around himself like armor. You can't defeat me. I hold the power of multiple devil fruits. I've absorbed knowledge from across dimensions. You still don't get it, Luffy replied, his voice calm despite the energy crackling around him. One for all isn't just power, it's responsibility. It's protecting people and their freedom. It's a torch passed from one generation to the next, Midoriya added, echoing All Might's teachings. A legacy of hope. They moved simultaneously, charging from opposite directions. Blackbeard lashed out with tendrils of darkness, but the resonating one-for-all energy between Luffy and Midoriya had created a frequency that his darkness couldn't easily absorb. Gum gum. Luffy began, his fist cocked back. New Hampshire. Midoriya continued, mirroring the stance. United smash, they finished in unison. Their fists connected with Blackbeard from opposite sides, one for all energy creating a perfect circuit through his body. The impact generated a shockwave that rippled outward, affecting not just physical space but dimensional stability itself. Blackbeard screamed as the combined energies tore through him, disrupting the multiple devil fruit powers he'd forcibly melded with his body. Darkness erupted from him in uncontrolled bursts, and gravity fluctuated wildly around the plateau. No. I was so close, he howled as his body began to break apart, the incompatible energies finally overwhelming his control. The 12 obelisks pulsed in perfect synchronization, responding to the massive release of One for All energy. The dimensional rifts between them expanded, merging into a single swirling vortex that enveloped Blackbeard's disintegrating form. "What's happening?" Luffy asked, staggering back from the pulsing energy. "The dimensional barriers are attempting to correct themselves," a familiar voice answered from behind them. They turned to see Hypatia, Robin, and the rest of the Straw Hat crew arriving on the plateau, having fought their way past Blackbeard's commanders. "The original point is restoring balance," Hypatia continued, watching in fascination as Blackbeard was pulled into the swirling vortex. "Removing the element causing the disruption." "Where's he going?" Nami asked, keeping a safe distance from the energy storm. "Everywhere and nowhere," Robin suggested. "The space between dimensions." The vortex contracted suddenly, closing around Blackbeard with a thunderclap that knocked everyone to the ground. When they looked up, he was gone, and the dimensional rifts had stabilized into 12 distinct portals, each showing a different world. "Did we win?" Chopper asked hesitantly. Before anyone could answer, the ground beneath them trembled violently. Cracks appeared in the stone platform, and the obelisks began to tilt. "The original point is destabilizing," Hypatia shouted over the rumbling. "Without Blackbeard's power holding it open, the convergence is collapsing." "What does that mean?" Zoro demanded, helping Robin to her feet. "It means the dimensions will separate again," the scholar explained urgently. "Everyone needs to return to their native reality before the portals close completely." Midoriya looked at the rift showing his world, UA High School visible in the distance. "How long do we have?" "Minutes at most," Hypatia estimated as another tremor rocked the plateau. Luffy approached Midoriya, extending his hand. "Guess this is goodbye then." The young hero clasped his hand firmly. "Thank you for your help. I couldn't have stopped him alone." "Neither could I," Luffy admitted with a grin. "One for All works better when it's connecting people, huh?" Midoriya smiled. "That's what All Might always said." As they shook hands, the blue energy surrounding both of them pulsed and harmonized, creating a momentary bridge between their different manifestations of One for All. Knowledge and experience flowed both ways, Midoriya gaining insights into how devil fruits functioned, Luffy absorbing deeper understanding of One for All's legacy. "Tell All Might I said hi," Luffy requested as they separated. "And that I'm using his power to help people find their freedom." "I will," Midoriya promised, stepping toward his portal. And maybe someday, he was interrupted by a massive tremor that split the platform down the middle. One of the obelisks toppled, its corresponding portal flickering dangerously. "We need to go now," Hypatia urged. "The dimensional structure is failing." Midoriya gave one last nod to Luffy and the Straw Hats. "Until next time." Then he leaped through his portal, disappearing in a flash of light. "Everyone off the mountain!" Frankie shouted as more cracks spread across the plateau. "This whole place is coming down." They ran for the path leading down, but another violent tremor sent massive boulders crashing across their escape route. "We're cut off." Usopp panicked, looking for another way down. "Sunny's on the other side of the island," Nami realized. "We'll never make it in time." Luffy looked back at the remaining portals, an idea forming. The one that showed the Grand Line was still stable, shimmering with blue energy. "I've got a plan," he announced, stretching his arms to gather his crew. "Everyone hold on tight." "What are you going to?" Sanji began, but was cut off as Luffy wrapped his elastic arms around all of them. Gum Gum Hero Catapult. With One for All enhancing his devil fruit powers, Luffy launched them all through the portal showing their world, aiming for the ocean visible beyond Raftel's shore. They shot through dimensional space in an instant, emerging above the waters of the Grand Line. Luffy stretched further, forming a makeshift parachute with his body to slow their descent. "There's Sunny," Brook pointed as they drifted downward. The faithful ship had somehow navigated around the island, as if sensing its crew's need. They landed with varying degrees of grace on the grassy deck just as a tremendous explosion rocked Raftel's central mountain. From the safety of the Sunny, they watched as the dimensional rifts collapsed one by one, closing like doors being shut on other realities. The mountain itself seemed to shimmer and fade, parts of it existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously before settling back into a single form. The convergence is over, Hypatia said softly. For now. For now. Nami repeated. You mean this could happen again? The elderly scholar nodded. The dimensions have been separated once more, but the original point remains. In time, perhaps years, perhaps centuries, the worlds will begin to drift together again. Luffy stood at the figurehead of the Sunny, watching as the last portal winked out of existence. The blue energy of One for All still flickered around his body, changed by his encounter with Midoriya but very much present. Hey, he called to Hypatia. Why didn't One for All disappear when the dimensions separated? Shouldn't it have gone back to its own world? The power you carry has fully integrated with your devil fruit, she explained. It's become part of this reality now, transformed through its connection with you. Luffy grinned, watching the familiar blue sparks dance across his fingers. So I still get to be a rubber hero? Awesome. Robin approached, holding something small and white. You might find this interesting, Captain. She handed him a piece of paper, a Vivre card that Midoriya had apparently slipped to her during the battle. A connection, she explained. If the worlds ever align again. Luffy's grin widened as he tucked the card safely into his hat. Then we'll have another adventure. And next time, maybe I'll get to see All Might's world. As the Thousand Sunny sailed away from Raftel, leaving the mysterious island to its secrets once more, Luffy stood watching the horizon. The blue energy of One for All hummed contentedly within him, no longer a foreign power, but part of his own unique strength. In another dimension, a green-haired young man sat in a classroom, quietly smiling as he felt the same energy flowing through him, now carrying echoes of a rubber-bodied pirate's indomitable spirit and love of freedom. And in a small apartment in Muzutafu City, a skinny blonde man paused while grading papers, feeling a connection he couldn't explain but somehow recognized. He smiled, somehow knowing that the torch he had passed was burning bright, not just in one world, but in many. The symbol of peace and the future pirate king, connected across dimensions by a shared power and a shared purpose, to protect the freedom of those who couldn't fight for themselves. Some legacies, it seemed, transcended even the boundaries between worlds. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.